Whazzup! Welcome
What's
to
up?
Mummies. So you can see, it's me. I survived that brutal assault by Ghostface and found new pants. He didn't leave me completely naked. And in celebration of Scream, we are covering an underrated entry in Scary Movie. Alongside me to celebrate the October 2025 movie club is Brand XK, who's always a delight and always has positive and excellent insight into every movie club.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here. It's been a while since we've been in the movie club. It's been since I think since May, since the last one, and we're talking about Drade and the Red as a double feature. So it would be good to get ease back into it with this.
Amen. And don't worry, those of you who are watching, this is still Torson's baby. However, real life has taken control this month. Most likely, November Movie Club will bring about his return. But if you remember, this is not our first horror-themed movie club. We've covered in the past 2 years ago The Thing, the original from the 1980s.
My debut.
2000. Yes, Brand's debut. And last year, we were delighted to feature a double feature in From Dawn Till Dusk and The Mummy from 1999, featuring the underrated and welcomely returned Brendan Fraser. So since on my Horror Homies 2025, I was unexpectedly knocked out and concussed by Ghostface, now that I'm alive and well, we're moving forward and covering Scary Movie because that also features Ghostface. So I'm going to hand it off to Bran to kick off what we should discuss first about this movie that, in my opinion, still holds a lot of weight despite it hitting its 25th anniversary this year.
Well, starting this off, I feel like it's best to start this off with what version of the movie did you watch? Because I watched the free version that's on YouTube. I'm assuming part of YouTube Premium. It's like an hour and 29-minute long version of it. Definitely edited for content, as it says in the disclaimer at the beginning. I get the vibe that it was the Comedy Central version of it because it definitely rung some bells from when I used to watch that version of it back in the day. And I could definitely tell they cut out some stuff that we'd probably get into later in this discussion. But it was like not a bad version of it to watch. Like I still got the gist of a lot of the jokes. Uh, for me, I think it's very funny. This is kind of give my view of like scary movie in general. It's like the junk food of cinema. Like you know you're going into for it knowing it's not good for you, but you kind of want that.
Yeah, I agree 100%. So when I rewatched it recently, and it's a regular watch for me, whether it's October or not, because remember, boys and girls, horror is not just a month, it's a feeling, because there ain't a damn thing in any of the horror movies out there that you can experience that is not scarier than what happens in real life. So I rewatched this on Peacock as they have the first 4 Scream movies, which surprisingly are on multiple streaming platforms this year. And they have Scary Movie, at least the first one. But I also got to experience it firsthand, not in theaters, but on a DVD that had a DVD ROM aspect to it. So you would slip it in and you could have interactive features where it would show you, it would have a high as a kite alert where on the side a little weed plant would light up green every time someone was getting high. It would have a gaydar every time some sort of gay essence or energy was permeating throughout different scenes, or it would just express trivia across the bottom of your PC monitor anytime trivia needed to be shared. And to this
I think I
day,
had that
love
DVD
that.
version of it too back in the day too.
It was great because not only did you get that, but it advertised that the feature would return, which it eventually did in Scary Movie 2, but that's a whole nother topic of discussion.
Oh yeah, like it's very funny that we're talking about Scary Movie. Well, it's the sixth movie is currently filming right now, if I'm not mistaken, and I think Scream 7 is also in production. So it's odd how 25 years later, and we're still talking about Scary Movie 6 and Scream in some fashion.
What amazes me is the fact that we will have Scream 7 and Scary Movie 6 in the same year, with Scream 7 featuring the return of Neve Campbell after her sitting out Scream 6 due to Skydance being greedy and being unwilling to pay a female cast member equal to her male counterpart, some of whom were just joining the franchise at that point. And we have the return of Marlon Wayans for Scary Movie 6, which is following the requel trope of just being called Scary Movie, much like Halloween in 2018 or Scream in 2022.
Time itself is a circle, and we seem to be circling back to around where the parody or like Scream when it came out was a revolutionary thing because at that time 80s slashers and the genre itself was on its way out the door, if not already. And Scream was like a deconstruction of the genre. Now it's become its own, like the snake eating its own tail, is now circled back around to where Scream is now the thing that is kind of like a shambling zombie, where it's like it honestly probably should have died off after two, but just kept on going and kept on going, same with Scary Movie. And now both are starting to come back to the surface, rising from their crypt, as it were.
And part of the irony is that we would not have Scary Movie with the same title had there not been conflicts in coming up with an appropriate title for Scream, which one of its working titles was Scary Movie. And I think not having that as the title really helped Miramax inspire Sean Wayans and Marlon Wayans to narrow down the list of what else it could be, because they were also talking, I forget what it's called. I think it was called I Still Know What You Did Last Friday the 13th was another working title. And that wound up being a title of another parody film, which...
Oh, a Shriek If You Know What You know. Yeah, I think it was Shriek If You Know What You Did Last Halloween. I think it was something like that.
Thank you.
It was a very word salad title, but it was definitely like movie pun, movie pun, movie pun, movie pun, the title.
What's also funny is despite this being a parody film, just like Scream really helped launch careers for actors who had been in something or were just debuting, Scary Movie did the same thing, because we would not have Anna Faris or Regina Hall in more dramatic roles without Scary Movie. So whether people agree or not, Miramax, Sean Wayans, Marlon Wayans, they really helped launch those cast members into the world of Hollywood.
And deservedly so, because both those actresses are standouts in Scary Movie. Like they are definitely like the pieces that make this work more than it really should if when you actually look it down and watch it. Because, oh boy, this movie's a bit of a rough watch 25 years later. And the context of 25 years of aging will do to you.
Oh, most definitely. But I think the one thing, for me at least, that remains controversial about this movie that still has standing, it's not the fact that some components are products of their time. It's the fact that following the launch of this movie, parody films were back in the rise within Hollywood. And we had other stellar films such as Chris Evans' underrated Not Another Teen Movie appearance and role, which also had Serena Vincent in her first full frontal role from Power Rangers Lost Galaxy, of all actresses and of all franchises to move from over to that kind of film. That was hilarious. The controversy lies in the fact that Jason Friedberg and Aaron Seltzer had worked on an original draft. None of their movie made it into this final product, and yet they were able to use for Date Movie, Epic Movie, Meet the Spartans, Disaster Movie, Vampires Suck, and I'm probably missing one or two, 1/3 of the writing team behind Scary Movie. Well, if
But
you
not superhero movie, which is actually the best one of those kind of movies.
Yes, very, very underrated film. But they were able to use the fact that they had worked on this film to kind of use that clout to promote their other films, even though none of their work makes it into the final production of this film. They actually left very early on, and this is primarily a product, brainchild of Marlon Wayans and Sean Wayans, with Keenan providing a few tips since he had already helped produce other products by that point.
I know there was like credited 6 writers on this when I saw the credits. I'm like, oh boy, not since Super Mario Brothers movie has there been that many writers on the project.
Yeah, there was a lot of movement early on, Brand, with this movie, because in order to kind of capture that same energy that Drew Barrymore brought into her role in the opening of Scream, they looked at Jenny McCarthy and Melissa Joan Hart to bring that same type of girl next door energy before Carmen Electra was finally cast in the role and fully embraced her own identity as the character, knowing what her reputation was in Hollywood at that point. It starts off the movie, and I think it honestly works pretty well. Is it a little over the top? Yes, but parody is meant to take the source material and enhance it in some way, shape, or form. In this case, it just ends up being that it enhances the stupidity with her choosing death over safety right off the bat in this film.
I
And
remember that being the screenshot in the DVD back the box was like safety or death was like the choices she would pick. And she's like, I don't know which one to choose. But like that opening scene definitely also like the bones of Airplane definitely like in the Naked Gun movies, of course, like very much filter into the opening of Scary Movie. And it works pretty well. Like I was like cracking up at like the treadmill part where like even like Ghostface is like, all right, let me just I'll keep running. Like I was like even like dying to that part. Just like the absurdity of it.
the fact that she's presented with a firearm, I believe there's a mace on her. For whatever reason, these are right on the table by her front door. She picks the banana to flee the house and to use as her weapon of choice. And that's after she beats the holy hell out of some kids just looking to get some trick or treat candy.
I can't feel my legs.
Even before that, the fact that they touch upon Ghostface inquiring what someone's favorite scary movie is, I agree with her. Kazam is a horror film when you take into account Shaq's acting. But is it more horrible than Steel? I don't know.
Steel is pretty bad. As somebody who had to watch that before, is pretty bad.
Seeing a switch from Drew Barrymore getting stabbed and seeing the visceral blood shoot out of her shoulder to Carmen Electra being stabbed and her implant comes out. That should have been the first sign that there were no holds bars with this being a parody. Also, moving from the parents in Scream looking in horror for her daughter, for their daughter, and finding her strung up. But instead, Carmen Electra's parents are driving home, and there's oral pleasure going on in the car. And they could have saved their daughter, but due to that aforementioned activity, instead they're in part responsible for her death.
It's always an unfortunate situation when that happens. But it's very funny how faithful they were to the opening the screen, even down to like details like that. And it's funny in that sense of how with the first Scream movie, like the tone is very much kind of serious throughout, even though it's like trying to be a parody of like horror movies and the slasher genre. It very much takes itself seriously when it actually gets down to the nitty gritty of like its own details. But Scary Movie, there's sometimes like I often forget this is like a comedy or just like a parody of Scream because I'm like kind of sucked into like, oh yeah, like of course Ghostface is running around. But I also forget that Ghostface is also just as also in on the joke as everybody else in the cast.
Yeah, because even though you can kind of count this as part of the Scream franchise from a meta standpoint, they mention the killers later on mention being inspired by the events of Scream in order to construct their murder spree. And it's amazing that on a budget of $19 million, they're able to not only capture some of the same basic plot points, but the cinematography style. I think they really put a lot of heart into something that could have just been a stupid comedy, which to a certain extent, this is a stupid comedy. You can sit down, turn your brain off, but not all stupid comedy is stupid in terms of quality. This is, in my opinion, a quality film that was rewarded with $278 million at the box office.
It more than made back his budget, which probably explains why it got as many sequels as it did. And the second one, to its credit, didn't try and retread back the Ghostface or Scream or I Stoned You did last summer, like teen slasher genre. It went into something different, which is the horror or haunted house horror genre, which I thought was a little bit refreshing. And to some people, they will even say that one's better than Scream Movie 1. It kind of depends, really.
Yeah, and from there, 3 and 4 were under Mr. Zucker, who had been involved in the airplane movies. And at least for Scary Movie 3, we had a common actor involved, but that's a whole nother thing. Moving beyond that opening scene to continuing the love and tribute to Scream with the introduction of Anna Faris as Cindy Campbell, a tribute to Neve Campbell and her character, Sidney Prescott. You even have played by John Abrams in a little bit more foolish route than Skeet Ulrich took as Billy Loomis. In this case, we have Bobby Prince, tribute to Ray Bronson, played by Freddie Prinze Jr. in I Know What You Did Last Summer, that took a lot of its plot points and its direction from Scream, crawling in through the window. And following that, we have the one, the only James Van Der Beek from Dawson Creek make a brief 2 or 3 second appearance as Cindy and Bobby become intimate, and does not go as planned, unfortunately, between the electrified chastity belt and PG-13 being a hairy, thick man's chest instead of the boobage that Bobby so desperately wanted.
Not to mention, like, okay, I'm glad you brought the Dawson's Creek reference because, like, that was one where, like, I was thinking, like, okay, it's been a minute since I watched any Dawson's Creek, but like when I heard this, like, the song cue for it, I was like, that had been a Dawson's Creek reference, and I'm just not clicking in my head right now. So, like, I'm glad you mentioned that because I'm like, okay, now I get it, the joke, because like I can imagine as somebody who like watching Scary Movie for the first time like this year, not ever haven't watched it before, I imagine they might be lost in a few references like that, having never watched Dawson's Creek before.
I love it because you could make the stretch that many people have since 2000 with Scream and say that this is connected to Kevin Smith's View Askew verse, since Jay and Silent Bob, not Kevin Smith and Jason Mewes, but Jay and Silent Bob themselves appear in Scream 3. Wes Craven shows up in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. James Vanderbeek is in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, and he's also in this. So meta is kind of fun in that way.
And also technically Laverne and Shirley as well, because the principal Squiggy is the same character as Squiggy from Laverne and Shirley. So that's a bit of an odd cameo there.
I
That was
loved
like,
I loved it, considering that it really took you back to the 70s where Laverne and Shirley was such a big hit and would air sometimes alongside Happy Days, even into the 90s on Nick at Night. So you had David Lander, who had originally portrayed Squiggy and is Principal Squigman in this, whereas Henry Winkler, the Fonz himself, was Principal Himbry in the original Scream. The main difference being that Squiggy, spoiler alert for a 25-year-old movie, survives, whereas Principal Himbry does not get so lucky in Scream.
so it's nice seeing that little bit of like a little in joke on itself there, like and that's just in the form of a cameo. You might not even notice it, kind of a thing. But if you're a long-time fan of like Nick at Night television, you would obviously probably get a kick out of that.
Also, that scene in the principal's office with him and the sheriff is quite different from what we encounter in Scream, because instead of really focusing on the tragedy of Drew Becker's death the night prior, they're really more focusing on the fact that Cindy's mother followed Sydney's mother's example and was a lady of the town, so to speak. She whored herself out, just like Sydney's mother did. And
Which is always a plot point in the Scream movies that never really interested me because they just kept going back to it. I'm thinking at this point, this feels like almost character assassination for somebody who can't even defend themselves. Because even in Scream 3, they're like, oh yeah, she was such a like. I'm like, dude, like I think we got it with the first movie.
I will say, though, I have a great appreciation for Scream 3 since it was unintentionally ahead of its time in touching upon the Me Too movement. It's ironic that eventually the Scream franchise moved into the control of the Weinstein Company, and Scream 3 touches upon corruption in Hollywood, how sex was used as currency, and Weinstein was part of that, even back when Scream was being produced. It doesn't make Scream 3 a better movie, but it's an interesting forward social commentary, if that makes sense.
For sure, in hindsight, now that you look back on it, yeah. Especially when you like Scream when Scary Movie was coming out. Scream 3 either recently just came out or was about to come out. I didn't get my timeline right. So it's
Yeah.
like kind of odd how that even happened, where like Scary Movie came in as Scream kind of hit its peak in popularity. Because after Scream 3, they didn't get 4 until 2011. At that point, that ship is already kind of at the station, so to speak.
Yeah, so Scream 3 actually came out 10 days before my birthday in February 2000, whereas Scary Movie was only a few months later, 5 months to be precise, in July 2000. It was kind of apropos because with this being a parody film, they wanted to focus on a good balance of comedy alongside the violence, since you still had to include some, with it being a horror film. It works because with the Columbine incident, the studios were up in arms and they wanted to tone down as much violence as humanly possible, leading to Scream 3 for the majority of fans being the most disliked and ranked lowest in polls, because they did ramp up the cheese factor and draw back on the violence in order to kind of step away from how violence had been part of real life. Kind of like the situation where they were afraid after John Lennon had been assassinated due to someone saying they were inspired by Catcher in the Rye. And yeah, they didn't want Scream as a franchise to be responsible for real life horrors and violence. So Scary Movie being violent, but not over the top violent as the first two entries were in the franchise, really works.
And a scary movie, they definitely leaned on the gross out humor for like a lot of it. Like there's some things like one of the first jokes in the movie is like a fart joke. So in Carmen Electra, like there's a lot of jokes that are like flatulences like, oh I'm sorry, I didn't mean for you to hear that.
Yeah, and at this point, we've been obviously talking over a minute, so we're not going to get flagged, but it moves beyond that to showcasing Carmen Electra, Drew Becker's boyfriend, outside the pool, just as had happened to poor unfortunate Steve in Scream, only it's not actually her boyfriend. According to her, he's just some guy that she's fucked a few times.
Who looks suspiciously like Prince, which is like I don't know and understand the connection. I don't recall there being the Prince and Carmen Electra romance, unless that might have been like a joke between Carmen Electra and Dennis Rodman. I'm not too well up on my celebrity gossip tabloids, but you know.
I, to this day, don't understand the connection between Carmen Electra and Prince either. But like with Scream, there are some expectations that end up differing because Squiggy survives, and so does this unnamed boyfriend as well. Whereas Steve had met his gruesome end, and we see our first batch of entrails in Scream. From the principal's office, we move outside to, actually, within the principal's office, we encounter our first interaction with, instead of Dewey Riley, we have Special Officer Doofy Gilmore, portrayed by Dave Sheridan, who's actually returning, at the very least, as Ghostface in Scary Movie 6, if not Doofy. So,
Which I am curious, and this is of course jumping ahead. I'm curious if that's going to get a payoff, considering what happens at the end of this one. If that's going to pay off the ending of this one, or if it's just going to be like a quick gag, or well, I guess we'll find out. But it's one of those things like it's very interesting how this was obviously a spoof on David Arquette's character from Scream, and it actually works so well. The fact that we're like even David Arquette was like laughing about it because the guy used to wrestle at WCW. The guy does not take himself that seriously with his roles and like his performances. So I'm glad at least David Arquette would look at something like Scary Movie and be like, nah, I get it.
yeah, agreed. And I will say this: if you ever end up wanting to show someone, a friend, a romantic partner, anyone, Scary Movie, make sure that you show them the Scream movies first. I made the mistake with both my first and second exes of showing Scary Movie to them first, and they could not take Dewey seriously within the Scream franchise. Every time he'd come on screen, he would be referenced as Doofy instead of Dewey Riley. So
I won't lie, I was one of those people where I watched Scary Movie first before Scream. So like a lot of like the parody bits, like I thought in my brain at the time, like, oh, Scary Movie came first and Scream what was ripping it off. And I'm like, no, that was obviously incorrect. But of course, I was too young at the time to know the difference.
Yeah, Scream was 1996. Scream 2 was 1997. Scream 3 was 2000, and this was later 2000. Also, since it takes a good chunk of its plot, at least half from I Know What You Did Last Summer. I Know What You Did Last Summer's first entry came out in 1997, which to this day, Sony can disagree, but they did steal the atmosphere and a large chunk of horror beats from Scream. If it weren't for Scream, we wouldn't have I Know What You Did Last Summer. And no
And
one need look for more proof than the fact that uh, a film franchise like I Know What You Did Last Summer is not meant to be meta or parody, and yet followed the requel formula after Scream to just have the latest entry as the same title of the first film.
which is a bit of a problem that I have with Scream personally as a horror franchise, is the fact that like it started eating its own tail, like I mentioned earlier, where you had so much of like clones of Scream happen because of the success of it. You got stuff like Cherry Falls, Urban Legends, I Know What You Did Last Summer, and it's got to the point where like even movie posters would rip off the Scream posters because you just have like a potential like villain in the background, and even in the foreground you just have like the cast of attractive like 20, 30 somethings. And it's like even the movie posters from horror movies just felt like they were all the same things during the early 2000s, late 90s. So it's like I'm kind of glad we're away from that. But then it's like even in 2025, this summer, we had I Know What You Did Last Summer and make a comeback. So it's like, okay, so I guess we just never got over the 90s nostalgia of it for the horror slashers, I guess.
No, with I Know What You Did Last Summer, it becomes even more complicated because you technically have three parts of that property with the same name. You have the 1997 I Know What You Did Last Summer. You have the 2021 Amazon Prime series, which I feel is severely underrated and should one day be incorporated into the main mythology. That's called I Know What You Did Last Summer. Then you have the recently released from July 2025 I Know What You Did Last Summer, which is technically the fourth overall entry, but since I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer was a 2006 direct-to-DVD film that didn't touch any of the other films, I
They
consider
basically
it
ignored it too. So
yeah. Honestly, if it weren't for Brandy being so great in I Still Know What You Did Last Summer, which is not the best horror sequel out there, I wouldn't even count I Still Know What You Did Last Summer as important to the franchise, but it is, since it cleanly wraps up that part of that franchise. Something Scary Movie has never really needed to worry about since it's a parody series. And as you said earlier, it just leaps from set of plot points to set of plot points, from this focusing on Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer to the next film focusing on um, the haunting and to a certain extent 13 ghosts and of all things Charlie's Angels Full Throttle makes a parody appearance in that film.
and of course the Matrix, because everybody was doing stuff with the Matrix in 1999 onwards. Like it was like a 10-year period when the sequels were coming up for the Matrix, when like leather jackets, leather sunglasses. It's like anything that had any kind of vibe from the Matrix, put that in the movie. That's like the studio like executives were like, "Oh, we want that in our new movie. Just make everything like that."
At
Slow
least in this
mo.
case, because it's a parody movie, it works and it's not as
Yes.
utilized as it was in other films in the early 2000s. I mean, The Matrix, I'm pretty sure, hit theaters in 1999, and as early as the middle of 2000 studios were already putting out films that had the same cinematography and shade of green that the first Matrix movie did before. For better or for worse, especially the Matrix Revolutions went full green in some scenes with the tint.
I mean, The Matrix was the reason why you'd have Grant Morrison's X-Men have the leather look in the comics that transformed into the movies. Because like those outfits were like what they want to replicate as being like the uniforms for the team at the time. So like even in the comics weren't safe from stuff like the Matrix influence.
So from the principal's office, we move outside where some people tell me we hit our first point of controversy, or rather, things that are said in the movie back then that aren't appropriate today. But looking at it from a meta standpoint, I still like it. Just like in Scream, you have reporters on the front lawn of the school doing their talking head thing, talking about Drew Becker's murder. And you see different news organizations pop up, with the final organization being Black TV, where, and I'm paraphrasing here, I don't have the quote memorized, but I believe the lead reporter says, reporting from Black TV, white folks are dead and we're getting the fuck out of here. Come on, let's go, motherfucker.
I think it was BET because that's a like a real network. So I think, but it's like I love that kind of like acknowledgement of like the black guy die first trope. So like, nope, getting out of this movie.
Not only that, but in some horror movies, and unfortunately in life, especially back then, it would be the black guy that would be involved in the killing spree. So the fact that they
Or
are
killed.
shooting them, yeah, or killed. Tagline for The Blackening, which has a primarily all black cast. They can't all die first. Well, that's the case in this.
I will say, at least Anaconda got it right and it didn't kill off Ice Cube.
No, but I kind of wish Halloween Resurrection had corrected that and taken out. Oh, who
Trick
was
or
it?
treats, Michael Myers.
Yeah, I wish that he had ended up
Busta
on
Rhymes.
the floor. Yeah, Busta. Busta Cap in that franchise that lay dormant for what, 5-6 years after that. Oh my
Until
word.
Rob Zombie resurrected it. Hey, see what I did there?
Yeah. But we're introduced to more characters as we have a Helen Shivers parody in Buffy Gilmore, portrayed by Nadia from American Pie. That's Shannon Elizabeth. They combine Helen from I Know What You Did Last Summer, because they focus on the beauty pageant at one point in this film, and Tatum Riley, who is Cindy's best friend. And she, Brenda, and Cindy are dealing with the fact that people have died, and I may have gotten some events out of order. It doesn't matter. But Buffy's talking about how she just wants to take care of all the needy people of the world, kind of giving her Miss America style speech so she can win the pageant, which we find out later is a Miss Thing pageant. A bum comes up to her. She is repulsed, tells him to get away from her, you bum. Cindy, being kind, offers him a sandwich after noticing he might just be hungry. He's asked for $1, and his response is instant. He throws the sandwich at her head and says, "I said $1, bitch."
Which is funny to me because like that's just basically just like the starting point for Anna Faris or Cindy just being the punching bag for all of these like appearances. It's like that's basically what kicked off was a sandwich.
Agreed. We amongst the reporters were introduced to Gale Hailstorm, obviously a parody of Courtney Cox's Gale Weathers from Scream, portrayed brilliantly by Saturday Night Live veteran Sherry O'Terry. And she does what Gale Weathers only implies she will do to Dewey Riley in Scream. She's flirtatious, but she takes it a step further and invites Special Officer Doofy into her van. You're left wondering what exactly went on because this is a special needs officer of the law.
And also is very much complicit concerning the fact that like this cracked me up too, and it's a very dark humor. But she's like reporting, and there's this kid just like making gestures behind her and acting goofy, and she's like, one teen, excuse me, two teens found dead. And it's like, okay.
And
like
no one,
Sherry O'Terry did so well in this movie. Like she got like probably the most laughs out of me of anybody in this movie.
No one reacts to that. They just feel in the moment. There's a small reaction, but then they just move on. There is no arrest or anything. The little bastard deserved it in that world.
Yeah, it's like it's basically like the movie theater scene from later. Is like everybody's just kind of like, and then just kind of move on. Which my second favorite part of the movie is in the movie theater scene as well.
We will get to that. We move back into the school. Cindy's in class, and we're presented with, for better or for worse, a reflection of something that was a bit of an ongoing thing back in the late 90s, early 2000s, in that we were finding that teachers were shirking their ethics and responsibilities and hooking up with their students. It's played for parody here. The teacher is talking about how we need God in our schools. The camera pulls out. We see her breastfeeding a baby. And she says, you go on back to your daddy, only to find out that the dad is one of the students in class. She says, I'll see you after class. And he gets high fives from his peers. Dark, but relevant for that time period.
And unfortunate as it is, that also just got like a kind of a chuckle out of me, like just how like absurd that was because it comes out of nowhere and never gets brought up again. I don't think that character even shows up again after that scene. So it's just very like out of nowhere how it happens and just like never gets brought up. But it's always kind of funny how that happens, where this movie just drops stuff in and kind of just like, yeah, screw it. You're in on a joke, you're not.
You don't need to touch on it. It's there. It's been seen or heard. You move on if it's not relevant to the plot. That's something that I really wish that duo that made so many horrible parody movies in the mid 2000s. And I'm usually not judgmental, folks, but I do feel that a lot of what they put out was schlock. I would rather watch the later Wayans movies like 50 Shades of Black and the two A Haunted House films than I would Meet the Spartans any day of the week, because at least those didn't incorporate product placement at every step of the way. So parody, one of the keys is you let the joke land, you let it get processed, and you move on. You don't have to hold the camera or beat your audience over the head repeatedly with the joke. Your audience will get it or they won't get it. If they don't get it,
and I enjoyed how many visual gags there were, like stuff that isn't really brought attention to, but stuff that if you like look in the background, you'll see like on the chalkboards, or you'll see on signs, or like even like the gym. I think there's like BA Corpse High School, and I'm like that's not like nothing's really brought attention to it. Like there's nobody's like saying, "Oh, look at that thing on the wall." It's just like if you see it and you notice it, you'll get a laugh out of visual humor. It's very Simpsons-esque, like that kind of humor, and I enjoy that.
There's even bits of foreshadowing throughout this film, because in that same classroom we have Cindy kind of starting to let her ADHD flow, and she starts looking out the window. You see Ghostface out amongst the trees, and he sprints away. She looks back at her desk, confused, and there's a note. Instead of saying, "I know what you did last summer," it says, "I know what you did last Halloween." And instead of doing the expected and flashing back to when there was a murder, like in "I Know What You Did Last Summer," it depicts a somewhat awkward, supposedly romantic picnic between Cindy and Bobby, her boyfriend, in which they're sitting in this beautiful field. There's a picnic basket, and I believe she feeds Bobby a strawberry and he eats it. He follows that up by taking a hot dog and repeatedly thrusting it into her mouth.
It's not even being subtle whatsoever.
No, but it comes into play because Cindy gets the note. She's obviously upset when she gets the second note because somehow this Ghostface can read minds and figure out that she's not remembering what she should be remembering, because it says, I think, "No, I'm talking about the guy you killed, bitch."
It says, "No, bitch, I'm talking about what last summer with the guy you killed." And I like that one also got me because like even like Ghostface was like had to be forewarned. Like, okay, no, I'm gonna write two identical notes, one underneath the other, just to make my point clear.
Yeah, it's like he knew, because we find out later who he is, and he knows Cindy fairly well, that she was not on the honor roll per se, that she needs
Like
that little bit of a push.
to be fair, her dad is like basically like a drug dealer for Pablo Escobar. I think was the gag there. So
Yeah,
like
Uncle
obviously
Escobar.
not obviously not a valedictorian by any stretch of the imagination.
Now, what are you going to cut it with? Baking soda, because baking powder guys will have muffins grow out of their nose.
You love that joke since you were two. I'm like, ugh.
Yeah, her dad in this is just a horrible guy, but at
He's
least he
only in
has
two
more,
scenes, but he's great.
yeah, he has more character than Mr. Prescott does in the Scream movies, because Prescott's really only in two scenes in Scream, but he doesn't really do much there. At least Mr. Campbell has a little bit more to do in the film, even if one of those things is to have a ball gag shoved in his mouth, a sexual ball gag at that. Uh, we encounter the rest of our cast, our main principal characters. We've already met Bobby, who is in this world living in a trailer that's on the front lawn of the school. And yet somehow, according to Brenda, that boy's ass is late to class every single day, despite living so close.
Yeah, I like how they brought attention to like he should be right here, and then just like cuts to him like exiting, saying goodbye to everybody in the trailer house, and just walking right back into the school.
Yeah, pulling his pants up to straighten him out a little bit, guzzling a beer and just chucking it right next to the front of the trailer. Just
Credit where
really.
it's due. When he shows up later, he's wearing the same outfit, so it's not like he's any different.
No, I honestly was kind of hoping Ryan would show up, because one of the main tropes that he's promoting in the Near Mint Condition Discord is you don't call his home a trailer park, you call it a mobile vehicle community. Well, that's what Bobby should be living in, instead of living on basically the front porch of this school. Uh,
I
he's
mean, it
still,
is in that case a very mobile home. You can move it to anywhere, even right by a school.
yeah, and apparently it's a TARDIS inside, because he's got Lil Jim, Big Jim, Bigger Jim, Slim Jim, and his mama all living inside that trailer. Uh, I don't remember the sequence of events, so if I am off, folks, I apologize. But we do finally get to see, thanks in no small part to Greg, a parody of Barry from I Know What You Did Last Summer, what in the world Ghostface was talking about. We get to see with Cindy, Bobby, Brenda, Ray, Buffy, and Greg with a short appearance in this flashback by Shorty, who was introduced earlier during an interaction with Gale Hailstorm. It showcases how they murdered this person, a la I Know What You Did Last Summer. And it's a result of pretty much the same thing as in that film. They're out partying, they're driving, Ray's feeling real good, dancing to It's Raining Men, which is the first indication that Ray may not be as honest with himself or others as he should be. But
Well, to be fair, there was like a good total of like 5 or 6 jokes even before that, where he was like commenting on like Bobby or like other male characters, like, "Oh yeah, didn't you have like a brother or something like that? Like, where's he been?" And like kind of like that stuff, like very much dropping the fact that like Ray may be on like the LGBTQ side of the equation, let's just say. Not that there's anything wrong with that, of course, but like obviously like hammering in home that joke about like what Ray's preference is.
yeah, there's actually a deleted scene where it shows him on the football team and they're at practice. This is meant to take place before Greg finds the infamous note inside his locker that sets him off a little bit. I think that's even before the flashback, honestly, because that introduces him to the idea that someone knows what happened. Yeah, because Cindy says, "Oh, I got one too," and that leads to another joke. But in the deleted scene, Ray's the quarterback. He's making the calls. He starts out with different numbers, and then he goes 69, 69, 69, and he's smacking the guy in front of him. And it's so sad they cut it because it really delivers that he's not just playing football, he's playing a different kind of sport altogether. He steps back and you see he's aroused at that point.
Yeah, they definitely shortened that in the version I watched because they definitely have that part where he's like shouting numbers and they do put in 69, but they just kind of like they're like, Ray, cut it out. Are you gonna say hike or what? And it's like they just kind of cut around a bit there, which honestly doesn't make much sense to me because there's a later scene with Miss Man talking again, another dated.
Yeah.
This is the
Very
humor of the
dated.
time, ladies and gentlemen. Very dated character. Like where Miss Man like had an erection talking to
Yeah. Cindy.
Sydney. There's a blank on the name there for a second. All the names are getting crossed together between Scream and Scary Movie. They're like obviously like yeah, like it was weird how they cut that out from like Ray, but didn't cut it out from a joke later in the movie, even though it's the exact same joke, really.
Yeah. Yeah. I do like though how we're slowly introduced to these characters before that flashback. I realized I was cutting out a little bit because we first meet Greg when we find out that not only is Cindy not on the honor roll, but Greg isn't either. Instead of having a D on his report card, it spells out dumbass. And Buffy, you find out is his girlfriend, has to point out, oh, at least you got one A because there's an A in dumbass.
It's like, oh, you're so smart. It's like, okay. Then they start making out in the lockers.
After football practice, you have Ray getting dressed, and here's another indicator. He's asking Bobby if he looks gay wearing that yellow shirt, and Bobby says, "No, man." So he pulls up the bottom and makes it look like a blouse.
A crop top?
Yeah, a
Like a
crop
crop
top.
top?
He's like, "What about now?" And Bobby's like, "No, man. Oh, it's cool. Yeah, cool."
See, at least Bobby seemed accepting of it at that time, but of course, there's probably the twist later. But
Yeah, the twist later really helps with that. Then we move to our first major penis joke because Greg has showered off following football practice. He comes to his locker in his towel, and he sees a picture of his micro penis and gets pissed off, comes out, accuses Ray of being the one to do it. Ray's confused but ready to engage in fisticuffs. Greg shows off the picture. The whole group laughs. And Cindy, without missing a beat, goes, Greg, it's okay. I've got one too. Oh, you mean Bobby got baby dick too? No. I mean, I got a note too. Someone knows. Then we go into the flashback. And it turns out they were drinking a little too much. Greg gets excited, drops a bottle onto Cindy's head, who's dealing with the fact that Brenda and Ray are making out hardcore. Ray's dealing with the fact that it's laundry day. Brenda's wearing granny panties. Buffy and Greg are making out. Bobby's horny, wants Cindy to just touch it. Once that bottle drops on her head, it's not just touching. The foreshadowing has concluded. She's got the full-on hot dog in her bun mouth. And that leads
Jesus Christ.
That leads to them hitting someone. And it's not a boot like Buffy originally theorizes, which is hilarious. It's a fisherman, only he's not dead. Instead of checking on him to see if he's actually okay, they start arguing amongst themselves about who's...
Guys, I'm all right.
Yeah.
Really no problem. I'll just go now.
Now, shit, there's alcohol all over. Greg throws the bottle. It knocks the poor guy out. He's still not dead, but thinking they've killed this poor man. They drive to the docks. They prepare to drop him in the water. Cindy's upset, says, we should at least find out who he is. Oh, shit, Brenda exclaims. He might have some money. I'll check his pocket.
I called dibs on the credit cards.
Yeah. Buffy's like, I'll take the credit cards. Ray says, I'll take his drawers. More gayness. Then,
like, again, not even being subtle with Ray's characterization, but
no. They drop him in the water, and supposedly that's the end of that story. But someone remembers, and at first they think it's Shorty because during the process of loading the body into the trunk of their car, he drives by, asks if they need a jump, which he can't provide because he's using his jumper cables as his roach clip anyway. Him being high and not understanding what he was actually seeing, he doesn't understand what's going on. He's right off the bat pretty much eliminated from the killer pool because he's a bit of an idiot and a pothead. But
Shorty basically riding him on the cloud when he was riding by anyways. So
yeah, exactly. I think from there the next major plot point is we move into Cindy's first encounter with Ghostface, which she survives first by sacrificing her grandmother to Ghostface by throwing her as a weapon at the killer, then offing her own grandmother with a piano, and saving herself by going into 911, which you could call through your PC, and just typing in white woman in trouble. The cops immediately show up.
yeah, which I liked how that was like a thing too, where it's like that was like a very like okay, that's a clever joke. Where like as soon as they like type in white woman in trouble, whole squad is going shooting straight for the house.
Just like Billy Loomis in Scream, Bobby shows up through the window. He drops more than just a cell phone. He drops full-on gloves and a hunting knife at Cindy's feet. She freaks out, runs to the front door, and we have Special Officer Doofy there. Bobby gets arrested.
Real quick before we get to that, there was a lot of funny stuff with like the phone calls between Cindy and Ghostface in this first interaction that I really enjoyed. Where like every single time like Ghostface was threatening her, she like Sorry, I got another call. Oh, hey, how's it going? The one since we caught up. Listen, I got this thing. Could you call back later? Oh, yeah, okay. Anyway, you were saying, I'm gonna, what was I saying? And like, just like this whole back and forth between them on the phone was like, I thought was hilarious. And not to mention, like, oh, yeah, well, where am I? I bet you can't find me. It's like, behind the couch. It's like, well, turn around, like, so you can't see me. It's like, hides in the rung. It's like, yeah, this is,
Yeah.
no, just immediately, it's like, no. It's like I
No,
love that little like
I
it's a
don't know
small
where you
moment. It's such a micro moment in the movie that always makes me chuckle. Like the fact like Ghostface is like, yeah, this no, just maybe abandons it.
now. Help me out here. Was that post her in the bathtub shaving at that point? Because there's some funny stuff that happens in the bathtub. She's shaving her legs and using the same razor, she ends up shaving her tongue for some reason too.
I think that was pre, but it's
Okay.
I think that was like a very long scene. But like I remember it that being like the part where Bobby gets fingered as like the culprit. So I think that's where that placed that.
Unfortunately for Bobby, that's not the only way he gets fingered during his
Oh
night.
Jesus. Poor choice of words, my bad. Phrasing.
But at least it seems to be somewhat consensual because the next morning Cindy's at school. She and Bobby are reunited after he spent the night in prison. His cellmate slash lover comes up and they seem okay with it. Bobby's a little offended by the fact that uh, Cindy would rather label him a killer than sleep with him. But Cindy's upset. Bobby says, well, it's been a year, and you expect her to talk like Sydney did about her mom being gone. No, in this universe, Brand, what is Cindy upset about a year later?
That's what I don't know if it's the same version we watched because I feel like it's a joke that might cut out. Because it's like I got the vibe it was like, well, you don't know what my life is kind of like, kind of a joke. But it's like I really don't remember if they cut it out or if it's a different version that I watched. I remember being very like kind of short and like I feel like odd. I feel like there's a bit longer scene attached to that.
So, in the version I watch, she's upset that the Spice Girls have broken up because Ginger has departed the Spice Girls. So
Oh, okay, yeah, I don't remember that part.
Bobby demeans her for that and says that there's basically more important things in life. And Cindy gives what eventually becomes her signature runaway and just flails her arms running away from Bobby at that point.
Very dramatically. It's very Scott Evil from Austin Powers.
And I think even before that, before we get to that scene, we visit Buffy's house because Cindy needed a place to stay, and we get our first hint at the true identity of the killer within the Gilmore household. Um, we get the idea that Buffy's a little promiscuous and that Bobby couldn't wait for Cindy. So Buffy and Bobby were intimate at one point because they're discussing Bobby possibly being the killer. And Buffy says, I knew there had to be something wrong. And she ends with, he's handsome, he's a good listener, and he's good in bed. Cindy goes, what? And Buffy says, oh, never mind. Then Ghostface calls. Buffy and Doofy's mom get Doofy, and he runs in his underpants with the vacuum cleaner. So you get to meet one of his primary love interests outside of Gail, and you get hints just based off the fact that Ghostface is no longer talking that maybe beyond the fact that Ghostface is actually calling while Bobby's in jail, that Bobby is not the killer in this particular film.
Oh, we did skip on one thing in a bit of a plot reason because we skipped over Greg, the pageant.
Yes, I think we did skip over that because Greg dies before that, and the pageant is filled with some interesting visuals as well, because it's not the Snow Queen pageant. It's not necessarily a beauty pageant. It's the Miss Thing pageant. So we
Miss
have,
Congeniality is also on one of the sashes as well, I noticed.
but it's not Sandra Bullock, unfortunately. She would have been great just to make a cameo appearance. But we have people with different sashes, with different sexual things on there. One of the contestants is Miss Fellatio. We learn that Buffy is promiscuous there as well, because Greg is cheering her on, and everyone in the audience is saying, yeah, that's my girlfriend too. Best sleigh I've ever had. Things like that. Buffy says she's going to do a dramatic reading. She sees Ghostface in the rafters and
The balcony, kind of.
the balcony, sneaking up behind Greg. And as she's delivering this dialogue, this monologue of horror surrounding what's happening to Greg as he's repeatedly stabbed and eventually just finished off, the judges think she's legitimately just giving a dramatic reading. She, at first, is remorseful that Greg has been killed and runs to Cindy for comfort, only to find out after that she's won and couldn't give a flying fig Newton about the fact that Greg is dead.
Which is funny, up until that point where she no longer cares, it is odd how well they play that straight, like that whole situation of like Greg getting stabbed. Because like they don't make really a joke of him getting stabbed. Like, and that's a situation where like you could see totally in the actual horror movie of like person's doing like a no, seriously, look, and nobody's like giving her like the time of day, they think it's part of the show kind of thing. Like that's really a horror movie trope there. So it's kind of interesting, like in this Perry movie, where even Greg dying the way he did is kind of taken seriously. Like they don't make it, they of course make a joke of it later and afterwards, especially with like how they stuff his body in a trash bag. But like
A trash
they
bag
get rid of
that's
the evidence,
clearly visible as well.
right?
They're looking for him, and you see Ghostface with the trash bag
Mopping the floor.
mopping the floor.
So like
It's
they
amazing.
up until that point they play it somewhat seriously. It's actually kind of impressive.
Yeah, it's just one of the reasons why I feel this is an underrated horror comedy film, because despite it being the 25th anniversary, I don't really see a lot of people talking about it or giving it the high praise it deserves. This was when the Wayans brothers, especially Marlon Wayans, knew how to pull back and just let the comedy breathe. To, of course, because it was the early 2000s, make your gay and your dick jokes, whatever, product of the time, but to have really intelligent visual gags as well.
And stuff that you would actually see in those horror movies that would come out during the day. Like like I said, like the whole thing of Greg getting killed, like you would see that generally in the horror movie as a trope. Like that would be an actual plot point that you would see. So it's kind of interesting they would actually do that and actually kind of play it straight. So like I think it was a small thing, but it's like something I kind of noticed is like, oh, that's very interesting how they handle that. Like of course you could probably read it as like the crowd being oblivious is like dark comedy. But like Scream itself is a dark comedy, so
100%. So to help bring people back into the timeline, Cindy tells her friends about the note. We get the flashback. Then the beauty pageant happens where Greg dies. Buffy couldn't give a shit once she wins the pageant. She even shoves someone trying to give her empathy and ask her about Greg out of the way and goes, fuck Greg, get out of my way, you loser. Then the attack on Cindy by Ghostface happens. She spends the night at Buffy and Doofy's house. She gets the call Bobby's released. Then Buffy is the next to be met by Ghostface in the locker room. She doesn't take him seriously at all. She asks, do you want to play Psycho Killer? Ghostface nods. And she ends up doing, before she's killed, more damage to herself than Ghostface possibly could.
This is the part where I break my leg. Ah.
And you see the bone come clean
Oh.
through.
Even I went to that, and I'm like, oh man, that's a good effect actually for like a split-second scene.
Yeah, I was surprised that the sound editor was able to get that to be so visceral. Uh, she starts crawling away, and one of the hilarious visual gags that you don't typically see in a horror movie occurs. You see Ghostface open his cloak, and he has a selection of different knives and cleavers. So he takes out.
What are you buying? He's like the merchant from Resident Evil 4 with his trench coat. Like, what are
Yeah.
you buying?
And I think this came out 2, maybe 3 years before that game really took off as well. So who knows? Maybe the idea came from this movie. I doubt it, but still kind of a cool tie-in. Eventually, Buffy is beheaded, but surprisingly not dead. She
Still
continues
talking.
to mock Ghostface. He's hitting himself with the bloodied cleaver because she won't shut the hell up. And instead
And
of
scratching his head with his knife too. I thought that was kind of funny tick.
he instead of finishing her off, he just gets sick of her shit, opens up the trash can, and throws her head in. That's the
Not
last
that
one.
not only a trash can, a lost and found one too.
Yeah. The funny thing is that when they were developing Scary Movie 2, the actress who portrayed Buffy, and I think she did such a great job in this because she's always great. Shannon Elizabeth was signed up to reappear just as Buffy's disembodied head, but because they didn't want to have any connection necessarily or any canon that was vital, they just didn't include her in that. But it would have been funny just to have a Buffy as a head included as the main character. From there, we move to Gail and her cameraman going to Makeout Lane or whatever they wanted to call the makeout spot. In
Lover's
this
Lane, I think it was.
Yeah. She walks up to this car where there's a girl, as Gail says, alone, confused, blouse unbuttoned, introduces herself. Hi, I'm Gail Hailstorm, author of the book You're Dead and Next. And Gail and Kenny watch as after they reveal to her that her boyfriend who went out in the woods to check us out may have been murdered. They watch her get butchered by Ghostface, who does not take kindly to the fact that he's on camera. He tells him to get the camera out of his fucking face, and we lead into a short parody of the chase sequence from the Blair Witch Project, which had come out.
Including the close-up of like the snot, like the scene where like they're recording the camera. Like,
yeah.
I kind of turned away on that because I'm like, I know the joke. I'm just not gonna look at snot for like a minute here because it's like right up on the camera.
And I think even that is after. Sorry, folks, we're going to go back and forth and out of sequence, but you're still getting the gist of the film. I think even that is after the press conference in front of the sheriff's department, where Gail is aggressively taking away the pens and microphones from everyone else because Cindy had been at the police station and had to try to identify why Bobby had supposedly been the one chasing after her killer. Gail knows more than she should. You find out what actually happened in the van between Doofy and Gail because Doofy interferes with the conference and goes, Gail swallows. Very memorable line. And Gail gets punched by Cindy for saying, Cindy, your ass looks fat. And then Cindy goes over to Buffy's house. But Gail...
Who touched me?
Yeah.
And there's a camera.
Yeah. Gail, it was me. I only touched the top of the breast. What did I say? What did I say? The Gail wears Prada shoes. So messed up.
Just for being over the cameraman.
Kenny meets his end. Gale ends up filled with regret and snot. We move to Ray and Brenda going to see a movie. What movie do they go to see, Brand?
Shakespeare in Love, which is an actual movie. So they actually got permission from Universal to put clips of this movie in there. Although there is a fake trailer that I love how they put immature as like the age rating for this, for a parody of the Titanic, but they call it Amistad 2. I'm like, oh God, only the Waynes can make this stuff up.
And the slave in the Amistad 2 trailer is the only portion of the film where the other Wayans brother, Keenan Ivory, comes into play. So we get that parody trailer. Ray goes to get some popcorn and to relieve himself. Brenda turns out to be one of those stereotypical moviegoers where she brings her own snack from home, and it's not just a snack. It's a full-on fried chicken dinner with tinfoil.
It's like a rotisserie chicken, I thought. It's like with hot sauce, too. I'm like, holy crap. I'm like, that's like dinner for me.
And for the record, those of you who don't know out there, movie theaters do not give a damn if you bring in your own drink, your own snacks. They just don't want to be required to clean up that shit after you. What's kind of funny is that rewatching this recently, it brought back nostalgia for me because in July 2022, I went to go see Nope at the theater, and I was in the first set of seats behind the handicap. Theater wasn't full. There were probably 12 of us, maybe 10 minutes in to trailers, because y'all know you get probably 30 or 45 minutes worth of trailers. The movie doesn't start at the time you purchase the tickets for. This gentleman comes into the film. We don't think anything of it. He's in the first row of seats before the handicap. So the last row in the first section of seats. He brings in, we can smell it, some fried chicken that's covered in buffalo sauce. We can smell it. About halfway through the movie, we start smelling some skunk. This man was smoking up the place with his skunk weed. And I'm grateful that at least Brenda, as annoying as she is in this scene, and I feel her murder is completely justifiable during Shakespeare in Love, at least she had the courtesy of not getting high as a fucking kite during the movie.
But she was doing piracy because she was having the camcorder and everything. Like, they were like, oh, this is a good scene. I'm going to watch this later. Kind of a thing. And I'm just like, it's like, even in 2000, like, you'd have, like, wait, if you go to movies now, of course, and you're bombarded by 20, 30-minute ads, and one of them is going to be, like, near 5 minutes of, don't talk in a movie. Your phone isn't part of the movie. Keep your phone on silent. Brenda's just the anti-version of that, where it's just like main character energy is just all Brenda. Like everybody else might as well not exist.
Agreed. We get a dated reference when she gets called out as well for using the camera, because she says, I caught you. You're on camera. You're on candid camera now. And you find out that Ray, during this time, has not been successful in coming back with his snacks. He's gone to the restroom. All the urinals are taken, and there's some visual notes on the urinals as well. There's also one of those little carnival games where you use the water to fill up, hit a certain point, and win a prize. I don't know what that's called. He enters a stall, and he hears some weird sounds that eventually turn into moaning. There's a
okay, we're warning you from here on until it comes back to Brenda. I didn't see a word of this because it's not in my version at all of what I watched.
Okay, so some spoilers then, but if someone lends you a Peacock account, it is fully uncut. So he goes into the bathroom. He has to pee. You see the carnival thing. Again, I don't know what it's called, but in carnivals, you take a squirt gun, you fire the water, and it eventually moves whatever is at the top up to this area where it rings a bell and you win a prize. So he goes into a stall. He relieves himself. You hear moaning, and kids, ask your parents when you're old enough. There's a glory hole in this stall. He, being Ray and being curious, at the very least, he sticks his head down, and through the glory hole comes a scrotum that starts rubbing its tip on his face. So he's enjoying it. Because again, he's Ray, and Ray doesn't seem to have any limits. He role plays with Brenda earlier in the film and asks that she call herself Brendan while they're getting intimate. He asks this unknown person in the other stall to do it again and sticks his ear up to the glory hole to have his ear massaged. Instead, what he gets is a penis, not just through his brain, but to the other side of his dumbass head. Ghostface shows back up in the theater wearing Ray's clothes, sits down next to Brenda, who's talking about how the lead actress in the film is about to get it on with Shakespeare. And due to finding her annoying and being a killer, Ghostface stabs her. She gets up. At this point, it's parroting the opening scene of Scream 2. And it's acted brilliantly despite the fact that it's a comedy. You can feel the Jada Pinkett Smith energy in Regina Hall at this point as she slowly crawls away, not knowing that Ray, who's Phil Stevens, portrayed by Omar Epps in Scream 2, is dead. And all of the other patrons of the theater are fed the fuck up. They don't care if this is real, if she's just vying for attention. They all start attacking her and naming movies that she has ruined for them before, including The Matrix being one of the films spoiled. Schindler's List, Big Mama's House, I believe is named as one of the films. She crawls up in front of the screen, and thankfully for the other patrons, she dies. They just go back to watching the movie. Ghostface sits down and enjoys the rest of the movie with them.
The funniest bit about that to me is Ghostface, in at least the version I watched because it cut out some bits. It doesn't even show Ghostface even stabbing her. Somebody takes a knife from Ghostface, stabs her themselves, and goes like, she just like, of course, is reacting, and like everybody's taking their shot at Brenda, and she's going up to the stage. Meanwhile, you just see Ghostface like chilling in the background, like, I didn't have to do anything for this one.
Right. That's what it is. It's the woman that she calls out earlier and shoves the camera in her face. That's what happens. She stabs Brenda. And again, within the context of this world, Brenda kind of freaking deserved it. If we're going to look at horror movies through the lens of you have to understand the rules of that world, if in Friday the 13th, for an example, if the rules are you don't drink, you don't do drugs, you don't have sex and allow deformed children to drown in the lake, otherwise you're going to get killed, you do any of those things, your ass deserves to die. Well, in this film, if you're ignorant or rude, that might be one of the rules that if you break them, you end up dying.
I mean, like I mentioned earlier, the kid that's just being like rude towards the Gale Hailstorm just got shot just for being annoying. But like, it was also kind of fitting for Brenda's character too, at least in this movie, because up until this point, she was always kind of like saying like, "Oh, I don't trust so and so because they're so fake." As soon as they come up to her, she's all smiles and acting like they're her best friend. And it's always kind of like an odd comeuppance to see like the two-faced person get their just desserts kind of a deal, even if she's also like obviously a victim in this too.
Yeah, 100%. Then we move from Scream 2 parody back over to Scream because instead of Stu Macher's house, we end up at Cindy's house because she didn't want to be alone. And Shorty, being Shorty, uh, earlier had said, "Yo, party at Cindy's house, drunk white women for everybody." So the party's in full swing. Uh, Unfortunately, Tina, one of the day players for this film, ends up being the next victim. She goes into the garage and is startled at first by a horse, but then by an encounter with Ghostface while getting beer. Ghostface doesn't really have to do a whole lot of work for this kill either, for better or for worse, because this day player was not hired for her intelligence and ends up crawling through the pet door in the garage, and instead of the garage ending up bringing her to the top and caving her neck in, the unfortunate side of things, and this might be a dated joke, the day player Tina is a little bit on the heavier side, and the entire garage door just collapses and caves her entire body in.
So another inverse of like a famous Scream kill, but it's like interesting how this one's just like Ghostface is kind of like, "Oh, why am I even here?" Basically, like these people are just doing it themselves.
Yeah, so we go from having Rose McGowan playing Tatum Riley, Sydney's best friend in Scream, to just having Tina, some random character we only see in this one scene, ask Cindy for beer, and then end up dying almost immediately.
Unceremoniously, really.
Yeah, Cindy is plastered. Bobby shows up. Cindy decides, you know what? Let's go have sex. So they go upstairs, start making out. In the meantime, Shorty's downstairs getting high in the basement off an aquarium filter with his friends. Ghostface shows up. Instead of killing Shorty, Ghostface decides to be friends with Shorty and his friends and just get stoned out of his poor little ghost face.
And this is when Fortnite Ghostface shows up because this is basically just like this is basically what they base Fortnite Ghostface off of.
And it kind of plays off foreshadowing from earlier in the film where Ghostface is making his rounds with telephone calls, and that's where we get the infamous Whazzup! And I believe
Which Budweiser parody.
Yeah, I have no doubt that this movie helped Budweiser sales around this time. Not a single doubt in my mind, because that was a viral thing back before going viral online was a thing. And I remember that the Budweiser Whazzup commercial, not just the first one, but all subsequent commercials, as well as a clip from this movie, racked up the numbers when YouTube was first being birthed into the world. And you could go viral for videos. So the friendship was already started. I'm sure Ghostface learned about the party from Shorty on that phone call. They're exchanging quips and kind of rapping with one another in the basement while stoned. Ghostface decides to get involved, and things get bloody. Oh, hell, do they get bloody, because every one of the friends during Ghostface rap gets massacred, except for Shorty, who can only exclaim, "That was the illest rhyme I ever seen, son!"
Which is Shorty is like we haven't really talked about him much, but like there's a reason why he's so quotable in this movie. Is like every line of dialogue he says is probably like "run, bitch, run." Is like it's a quote I would, if I was talking to somebody outside of here who watched this movie also, they'd just be calling Shorty at me because like other than like Ghostface, he's probably the most quotable person in this movie.
Yes, and there's a few things that I would like to be able to quote in full on here, but I can't because I don't have the right to use specific words. But
Oh, absolutely not.
uh,
But
I will paraphrase that even earlier in the film, they're Shorty is having a conversation, and he responds to a question with, I got blunts, bongs, all the things that make a high N-word pie. And just the delivery on some of his lines make those scenes for me. Marlon fully embraces how ridiculous Shorty Meeks is compared to Randy Meeks from Scream. I think changing it up and having that character not be a horror film expert but being a weed expert really works for this film.
I guess it's also his identity that's away from just being solely a screen parody. It's still kind of keeping that stoner culture, like edgy 2000s humor.
There is not a single character in this film, Brand, that I can say I despise. Even though there's killing going on, there's not a single character that I dislike. There are characters in the main Scream franchise that I think were unnecessary, that I don't like. But in this, because everyone seems to be having so much fun, and the plot, despite being a mesh of multiple movies, just in parody form, it works. It flows so well for me. I love this movie so much.
Yeah, nobody outstays their welcome in this movie, and that's kind of refreshing considering how, like, even in Scream, like Randy, who's like the horror movie aficionado, even by the second movie, I was kind of tired of his shtick of this isn't like the rules kind of a deal. We're like, ugh, it got tedious after a while.
And we'll get to the rules of surviving a horror movie from Shorty later on, because our next scene, do you want to talk about what you saw during Cindy and Bobby's love scene, which takes place immediately
Okay,
after?
so here's also the thing that got cut out of my version because it got up to the point where they start like making out and undressing, and it got to the point where Bobby's about to take off her underwear, and you just see bats pop out of her underwear, and it goes like, "Oops, it's been a minute," and then it just cuts to them afterwards. Like it doesn't show any of like what they did, but like it's obviously what they're about to do, and you kind of get the gist of it from like afterwards from what they're talking about. Like they don't show any of it, at least in the version I watched. Thank you, YouTube, I guess.
So I don't think YouTube even has clips of what happens, but just like they take to the extreme the scene from I Know What You Did Last Summer, where Julie James, played by Jennifer Love Hewitt, referred to in this film when characters are discussing who would play who in a movie, and Anna Faris's Cindy says, "Oh, I'd probably be Jennifer Love Huge Tits in a movie." Uh, in that scene, she goes, "What are you waiting for?" to the killer, and we end up seeing a teacher who's about to commit suicide read that as he needs to kill himself, and he jumps off the building. The
Oh
love
yeah,
scene.
I know what I'm waiting for, and then yeah,
Yeah.
that is like a
Oh,
good that's a good takeoff of like I know what you did last summer because what are you waiting for? Like that's obviously like a quote from that.
so we have a few comments here. Not sure if you've been able to see them, but Torsen a little while ago said that uh, he'd love to drop in and is great to see us holding the torch. We'll do this again next month. So we have confirmation, boys and girls. Movie Club will be back in full next month. And Kevin, who runs part of the Omnibuds Cafe, for which I'm the affirmation administrator, has asked how we're able to discuss this so much and how much coffee we've had. Well, Muggsy / Kevin, I don't drink coffee, but you would have to ask Brand how much coffee he's had.
Currently 2 cups of coffee, but I work nights, so this is nothing to me. So
excellent. And Brand has such a library of knowledge for films, for life in general. And one thing I would love to, at some point, whenever he's comfortable, see him do is maybe do a retrospective for the DCAU, because he was doing that in the Near Mint Condition Discord, and they were absolutely brilliant.
I remember where I stopped and left off on that too, but that's a story for a different time after we get done with this. But as we were on the movie review, as it was,
the love scene, it plays out a bit differently in the uncut version currently on Peacock. You see the bats. Cindy says, "I guess it's been a while." Bobby makes his second attempt, and an afro of pubic hair pops out. So Cindy just kind of laughs. Bobby puts on goggles, pulls out a weed trimmer, and starts sawing and buzzing away at her pubes until you see them disappear into the distance. He, like any lover should, engages in more foreplay and goes beneath the belt. She's enjoying it. Bobby comes back up and pulls a whole wad of pubes out of his mouth. Cindy can't hold off any longer and asks for Bobby to just give it to her. You see her from the neck up riding Bobby, and the longer it goes on, the more intense it starts to get, because it incorporates Michelle's role from American Pie, portrayed brilliantly by Allison Flanagan, who was also on How I Met Your Mother, and the later sequel, How I Met Your Father. She starts degrading Bobby. What's my name, bitch? What? What's my name? What? I said, what's my name? Oh, Cindy. Oh, yeah, that's right. And she continues to ride, and you hear this demonic voice come out. Oh! And Bobby is close to climax at this point. It's time for Cindy's comeuppance for the abuse, because he's been blocked up, apparently. He ends up finishing. You see his ribs as he's inhaled that much while finishing, and she ends up plastered on the ceiling by all of his joy juice. However, in the very next scene featuring them, she's cleaned off, and Ghostface enters the room, and despite Bobby prior to the makeout and lovemaking saying that life is all just a movie, and even pointing to the camera crew and flirting, hey there, baby, with one of the assistant directors, Ghostface comes in, stabs Bobby, and rest in peace, supposedly, Bobby. Cindy ends up getting a gun. Bobby's not actually dead. Ghostface has disappeared. They walk down the stairs. Shorty comes in, screaming that there's ass, blood, and guts everywhere. Don't know how the ass came in, but that's what he says. And you get the heel turn, where in Scream, it's Billy Loomis, portrayed by Skeet Ulrich, revealing that we all go a little crazy sometimes. Bobby paraphrases that, shoots Shorty in the lungs. Randy was in place of Shorty in Scream and got shot in the shoulder, but this is in the lung because we get one last gag pre-credits from Shorty where the weed's leaking out of his lung. He asks Cindy if she wants to hit it, and he collapses in pain.
Which, quick trivia note about that, by the way, is like, it's kind of funny how Bobby was quoting Billy from Scream, who was quoting Norman Bates from Psycho. So a little bit of a triple reference there.
Yeah, I will call that homageception or something
It's where,
that. So then Ray's not dead. He shows up with his ear bandage because he took a penis from
okay, here's where the part confused me. Because it didn't show any of that part for me in my version of it. Because it didn't show any of that with what happened right in the theater. From there, of him like using the bathroom, like you just cut from him in the bathroom to Brenda Guild, and Ray popping up next, you just see a bandage on Ray's ear when he pops in, and I'm thinking like, I don't recall him getting stabbed or punctured in the ear anytime in this version of the movie. So it just kind of felt very jarring seeing him pop up next with like a huge bandage on him.
Yeah, it's because of the penis to the skull. He literally got skull fucked in that theater. Just one thrust. So he shows up, bandage on ear, voice box. At first, it's a female voice coming through. Surprise, Cindy. He slaps it. Then it's surprise, Cindy. It's revealed that, just like in Scream, we've got two killers. And so Cindy is trapped in the kitchen with Bobby and Ray for a short amount of time. One of them exits, brings in her father with the intent to frame dear old daddy, who apparently had just been hiding in the closet from Pablo Escobar. He didn't actually leave the house. He was just hiding in the closet the whole darn time. He's got knee pads, a butt plug, and a ball gag with a dildo on the front of it for some reason. And the two killers reveal their motive. Do you know what their motive was for enacting this spree of murder?
Well, according to Bobby, it was because he wasn't getting laid, which I thought was like very interesting because like you literally just got laid, and a year earlier you also accidentally got like your dick sucked. So like, not to mention he's like, and you know what happens when abstinence makes you like. I feel like this is like a real middle finger to anybody who's asexual. Like Jesus Christ, like.
But to make matters worse, Bobby is not just rejected in that moment by Cindy, because we find out that Bobby had another lover the whole time, at least in Bobby's mind. He's rejected. We find out that he and Ray, at least once, had been intimate. Ray states that while Bobby may be gay, he's not gay. Bobby's like, but you took me shopping. And Ray's like, yeah, I needed new shoes. But
What about San Francisco?
Yeah, you made love to me. Well, first of all, you were sucking my dick. So he's rejected. Bobby just decides to move on. I don't give a shit, Ray. Let's kill this bitch. And Cindy utters, you've seen too many movies. As Ray starts stabbing Bobby to help portray that they are the lone survivors and they had to fight off the killer, Cindy's father. Unfortunately for Bobby in this instance, blaming the movies sets Ray off, and he starts pummeling Bobby with the knife much harder. And
Oh, not to mention that. That's also the reason. Like, also because they canceled the Wayne's Brothers show.
The Wayans Brothers was a good ass show, and we didn't even get a
Okay,
final
okay, I
episode.
got your point. Oh God.
I'm
So,
feeling woozy here. Disparroting Matthew Lillard, who to this
never
day
got a final
is
episode.
one of my favorite Ghostface. Hands down, Matthew Lillard is the epitome of an abusive family life that became a psychopath because he felt he had reached his end at that point. Uh, Cannot wait because Matthew Lillard is coming back in Scream 7 alongside other veteran actors. Uh,
Not sure how that's going to work continuity wise, but I'm sure they'll think of something.
well, considering Skeet Ulrich has come back as Billy Loomis in 5 and 6 as a ghost, or as a representation of Melissa Barrera's Sam's inner monologue, it might be somewhere along there. But David Arquette, despite Dewey, R.I.P. Dewey, passing in Scream 5, also known as Scream from 2022, he's returning. Skeet Ulrich is confirmed to return as well. And it's rumored, but it's not explicitly stated, that we may see other Ghostface make comebacks.
I'm
So
I'm calling it now. It's a twin because the Scream franchise loves more than anything. It's a twist villains has something to do with a relative
uh-oh.
or
Rose.
someone close by.
There you go.
We're back.
Yeah, we're back.
All right. Okay, I'm not sure when to cut out, but like, if there's anything the Scream franchise loves, it's the killer ends up being related or somehow involved with the main protagonist in some way, or just so I'm not gonna be shocked if Matthew Lillard comes back and he's the killer again because he's like the twin half brother of Stu from this one, and like I don't know at this point, like three was like already a stretch and pulling it from their asses with how they did that.
Well, the funny thing is about Stu Macher, again, played by the brilliant Matthew Lillard, who has not only portrayed Stu Macher in Scream, but was Shaggy in the first James Gunn produced Scooby Doo films in the early 2000s, and has hopped over to Five Nights at Freddy's. His character is mentioned in Scream 6 because there's a scene where you see the legacy that Ghostface has left, all the costumes, and you see the TV that was dropped on Stu Macher. One of the killers in that movie makes reference, and Kirby, portrayed again by Hayden Panettiere, who was first in Scream 4 as Kirby, possibly a nod to Jack Kirby, who knew his shit, but maybe a reference to something else. Mentions the TV. I believe it's Sam or Jenna Ortega says, well, that's what killed Stu Macher. Kirby says, maybe. So supposedly Lillard will be Stu Macher again. Unfortunately for Bobby, however, the Stu Macher in this film, he's not coming back. You see him clearly stabbed the hell to death and die as Ray is stabbed through the back after telling Bobby, no one's going to stab me. Ghostface stabs him. Bobby's going through his moaning and wailing, dying. Ray collapses on top of him, dick to ass. Again, another gay joke in Ray's podcast.
Ray does come back in the second one, playing a completely different character, but still same name and everything.
It's so funny that the Wayans brothers connected these films in a way that the same character can return film after film, even if they meet their end. Because Regina Hall dies in this as Brenda. The same Brenda comes back. She survives Scary Movie 2, only to die to the Ring parody in Scary Movie 3. And she's She's in 4 and is set to return alongside Aaron Ferris in Scary Movie 2026, also known as Scary Movie 6. I
Even
love
Anna Faris, like, not to spoil anything for this 25-year-old movie, but even at the end, like Anna Faris, like, also gets hit by a car and is,
yeah.
not very vague about the fact that, like, probably dead too, in a very Final Destination-esque shot.
Only thing missing was a log truck being the one that did it, but this came out before Final Destination 2. I think it actually
It's
came
odd
out
how they
in
got that right too.
20. So obviously, despite their claims, Ray and Bobby are not the killer. There is a real ghost face, and he doesn't give a damn that the Wayans Brothers was canceled after 5 seasons without getting a final episode. Ray's dead. Bobby's dead. Rest in peace, Ray. Fuck you, Bobby. He and Cindy come to blows. We get some Matrix parody. We get Power Rangers noises. We get Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. We
A
even get,
little bit of Beetlejuice in there.
yeah, we get Beetlejuice. We get freaking Riverdance. Cindy uses her kung fu magic skills to kick Ghostface out the window. Ghostface disappears as the police show up. And then we enter the final scene where Cindy and the sheriff are discussing what could have gone wrong. This time in the sheriff's office, instead of Cindy being given a file that shows the sheriff in a thong and in different awkward poses, the sheriff is actually doing his damn job and discussing who the killer could actually be. We enter the usual suspects being given tribute as it's revealed that Doofy has been around everyone and has been
Pulling
working.
a Kaiser Soze on everybody.
Yeah, he has been working since about halfway through the film with Gale Hailstorm, and we watch as it's revealed suspects. We see that Doofy has been pretending to be mentally challenged, at least in the vernacular they used back then. That's non-offensive. That's what they used. I'm not going to repeat the word or words that he was referred to back then that starts with an R, but there is one scene, one joke where Buffy calls Doofy an R word, which by logic, that's a double negative. That means he's actually intelligent. We find out he is intelligent. He set this whole thing up. He's the real killer. He reveals himself to be pretty handsome in terms of this film. He rides off into the sunset with Gale Hailstorm after you see him ditch his backpack with the knife and the Ghostface mask. The sheriff and Cindy are too late. Cindy, like an idiot, because again, she's not Dean's List or honor roll material, is standing in the street and screams, "No!" while the sheriff walks off and she's hit by a car and supposedly dies for at least that extent of the film.
So even in the comedy, it's somehow more bleak than the serious horror movie.
It's somehow more bleak than Kaiser Soze getting away with theft and murder in The Usual Suspects.
Honestly, though, a good twist. Like I got shades like almost sleepaway camp from how they did this reveal because like they didn't really foreshadow this a whole lot, but like they did a pretty good job of like making Doofy like like obviously like we obviously would have like his creepier moments, like just when he's talking to Cindy as he's leaving, but like nothing does seem like overt until that happens and is like, oh wow, they really went like full like Usual Suspects, like the coffee mug dropping, see Doofus on the bottom of it. It's like
With
they
the
just went full on
goldfish
like
in the coffee too, Brand. The goldfish in the coffee. Oh my gosh. he really put on a show because obviously, despite having a relationship with the vacuum, he does understand how true romance should work, which I'll touch upon later because there's a post-credits sequence. Our mid-credits sequence, with the killer having gotten away, we get a parody of Randy Meeks, Jamie Kennedy's video from Scream 3. This had to have been shot after Scream 3 released and shortly before Scary Movie came out, because in Scream 3, the only way Jamie Kennedy's Randy appears is in a video recorded before his death in Scream 2. He talks about the rules for surviving a horror movie that has become a full-on franchise. Shorty reveals the rules for surviving a horror movie in his own way. Did your version include that sequence by any chance?
It did, but obviously the punchline is not for a horror movie. It's for snatching and grabbing at a gas station without getting shot at by the clerk.
Yeah. It's pretty much the same as in Scream. One of them is don't ever look back, which is how Shorty ends his diatribe. And you learn that he and his boys are stealing from a convenience store, gathering the snacks that you see them eating right before Ghostface appears and kills most of those friends. You see the shop owner take offense to this and start shooting at them, cursing at them. Snatch and grab, y'all! Run! Run! I see you, cocksucker! Get back here, you motherfucker! Then it moves into a highlight of, in my opinion, every single Scream film. I feel like every single Scream film, whether it's of good quality or not, usually has an amazing song leading the credits right off the bat, where they detail which actor portrayed which character. We get that with a song titled Scary Movie. And after the credits, you probably didn't get this. Did you get the sequence where Doofy has to have a tough conversation?
Surprisingly, they kept this in, even though like they barely mention it in the cut beforehand. But it's like they do bring up like Doofy with the vacuum cleaner, and he's having this heart to heart with a vacuum cleaner. It's like, I realize what romantic love really is. They're like, no, stop it, stop it. He's like brushing that vacuum cleaner away. And it's like, yeah, obviously, it ends on the gratuitous part, but what I always forgot about was like how you can still hear the audio even if after it cuts away is
Yeah,
like the worst part of it.
and him finishing. So the movie basically ends as it began, with an inappropriate and yet hilarious joke. Starts with a fart joke and talking about genitalia. We did skip over that because Ghostface in the opening sequence, when he calls Drew Decker, is actually looking at the Playboy magazine in which her actress, Carmen Electra, was featured. She even lists the page number that Ghostface can turn to see her as the centerfold in that Playboy magazine. I think that's a nice touch and pretty hilarious. So the film ends with satisfaction for the viewers and a different kind of satisfaction for Doofy.
It's very much it very much is like the tone of this movie though, where like if it ended on a serious note, like Cindy getting ran over by a car, I feel like that would be a little bit too like it's a bit off. But like it ending on Shorty's monologue and it ending on Doofy, like still being in character, so to speak, like it ending on that felt like the right way to end this movie in an odd way of saying it.
It works. All of the films parodied uh, in this movie, I believe, because people wanted to have an understanding around that time, got rentals from Blockbuster or Hollywood Video and smaller mom and pop chains, because this parodies not only I Know What You Did Last Summer, Scream, Scream 2, Scream 3, it touches upon Halloween with that sequence where Cindy looks outside, touches upon the Blair Witch Project, Friday the 13th, because Ghostface goes when he's
The
screwing around
Shining.
with Freddy and his friends. The Shining, because Red Rum shows up very briefly. The Matrix, of course, Usual Suspects, Psycho with the Norman Bates line, but he uses Candyman's hook for a kill, and Ray even tells Cindy that she branded Bobby the Candyman for getting him put in prison. And Shorty makes reference to The Sixth Sense. This is a brilliantly constructed parody
And
film.
I Know What You Did Last Summer, where they even comment on it too. They comment on like Scream had no plot. I Know What You Did Last Summer made no sense, and this is coming from supposedly like Bobby and Ray and like the copycat killers, and like the motivation, like yeah, those movies didn't make any sense. Why do you think we're doing what we're doing? Kind of a like excuse, and it's like even they're taking like the piss out of like so soon after screaming I Know What You Did Last Summer and their plots.
But sadly, unlike Scream, I feel like Scary Movie kind of overstayed its welcome. Uh, After this film, there was talk of a sequel, which was put out, I think, a year after in
It was very
2001.
shortly after.
Yeah,
It was like a year after this.
which I appreciate, because I feel like Scary Movie 2 is still great. That one had a higher budget. I think that one was about 50, but the return on investment was a little bit less. I think that only made 150, whereas this one was 19 million and brought back almost 280 million. Still good return on investment, in my opinion. And it was still good enough that after this, the Wayans brothers wound up following Dimension Films, which was under Miramax, to go work with the Weinstein company that distributed Scary Movie 3, 4, and I think 5. So there is a legacy for this parody franchise, boys and girls. We may not have kept the Wayans brothers due to them wanting to be involved in other projects, including a wonderful film featuring Terry Crews known as White Chicks. Scary Movie survived its creators, bringing about Scary Movie 3 in 2003 under David Zucker, who also directed Scary Movie 4 in 2006. But Zucker, I believe, only produced Scary Movie 5, which took 7 years to release and included Lindsay Lohan and Charlie Sheen, who was returning as a different character. He was in 3 and 4 as well, but returning as a different character in those films.
And five was definitely the low point because at that point you had the team of Freebergens, blanking on the last name, Seltzer.
Yeah,
You had that creative team back for this, and the quality really shows with how just bad Scary Movie 5 is. And like I said, you went from like, yeah, one and two are basically junk food. Like they're dated, sure, but they're still enjoyable for what they are. But
right.
three and four are like basically like back to airplane style level of humor. while also keeping in the pop culture references and stuff like that, but more keep it more like an airplane style film. Five is just throwing
It's
anything at the wall and hoping anything stuck.
Yeah, because at least three introduced us to Anthony Anderson and Kevin Hart, and because Zucker had formed such a meaningful relationship with him during Airplane and the Naked Gun films, we had Leslie Nielsen in Scary Movie 3. That was awesome. We had Queen
Hmm.
Latifah. We had George Carlin, Denise Richards in there. The low point around that time was probably having Charlie Sheen in the films, but he was funny in Scary Movie 3 uh and 4, even though
This is
he
also like one and two is before like the celebrity cameos, like talking about. Like we mentioned some cameos here and there, but like they're very, very small if they do show up in the first two at least. When it got to three and four, definitely four is when it got very gratuitous because like the opening was like Shaquille O'Neal and I think Dr. Phil and like the
yeah,
Saw parody.
but that film still had some pretty great actors in there. We had the return of Carmel Electra in that one. I think that was the one with Chris Elliott in there because he was involved in the Village parody, and Molly Shannon from Saturday Night Live and the May He Rest in Peace. Michael Madsen were in that film as well. That was up until this next entry in 2026. That was the last time we had, and it's Scary Movie. Is there really an ongoing storyline? Not not much, but that was the last time for the canon that we had a connected storyline through our characters. That was the last time we had Anna Faris and Regina Hall before this next movie. Anthony Anderson, Kevin Hart, they didn't return for Scary Movie 5. I think the writing was on the wall when they all found out who was in charge of Scary Movie 5. I cannot believe that we wound up getting it 7 years later. They marketed it heavily, and then it turned out to be, I don't say this lightly, but pretty much hot garbage. I've watched it since, but I'm not a huge fan of it. I would rather have Shaquille O'Neal fighting each other in a bathroom while Billy the puppet from Saw laughs at them and Dr. Phil saws off the wrong foot than them try to make Paranormal Activity, which is kind of its own parody film for found footage, into a parody.
Yeah, it definitely shows the drop in quality because like you can look at Scary Movie and feel like first one's obviously the best one and they get diminishing returns. I think the first four there's at least always at least one joke in each four that I've like, okay, that's funny. Five, I didn't laugh freaking once, and that's depressing for any comedy, really.
Yeah, it's such a shame because Simon Rex was in Scary Movie 3 as the love interest for Cindy, who is blonde for some reason in 3 and 4. Uh, and he plays a different character. They could have used him as a connection to previous films, like, hey, I didn't actually die in $1 Million Baby parody in the previous film. Molly Shannon's in that one. Terry Crews was in that. Snoop Dogg, Cat Williams. It could have been a home run for them, but instead, it just didn't work. And I'm completely joking here. I'm grateful that she's sober and she's acting again, that she's a parent, that she's grown. But I'm wondering if Scary Movie 5 may have been part of a wake up call for Lindsay Lohan, honestly, or if it was a wake up call for Charlie Sheen.
I mean, jury's out still on both. I think though it's a good sign that we're bringing back Scary Movie with six because last I checked, that's supposed to be out next June actually, so not too far off.
Yeah.
It's still filming, but you know how comedies they like churn them out quick because it's not take doesn't take that long to produce a comedy movie. But like with the success of Naked Gun and how that did, I think there's a good chance that like with Naked Gun, how well that did in theaters and how it turned out, I think we might be seeing a comeback of those movies again, especially with
Oh,
Scary Movie 6 if it does well.
I I am not a Debbie Downer, you know this, but reviving a franchise like the Naked Gun that is beloved by so many and has a legacy thanks to Leslie Nielsen. There had been jokes and fan casts for a long time about Liam Neeson because the two actors got confused taking the reins and rebooting the Naked Gun. When that first trailer hit, being able to, no pun intended, be taken away from my doubt and see, okay, it's going to be almost Liam Neeson, how he acted in Ted 2 for that short sequence, but for a whole movie, I can get behind that. And then being even more pleasantly surprised by seeing how much love and reverence was put into it. I mean, they even referenced OJ in the movie. It was
Just
wonderful.
like very quick, like, okay, now we can move on kind of
Yeah,
a bit.
the
Hmm. Like, no.
if we can show respect but not be slavish to the work that's come before, I'm fine with quite a few things getting a revival. I don't mean like Back to the Future. I'm perfectly fine with Bob Gale taking the stance he has over the years.
I'm good without the Goonies too. That ship is long sailed. This long sailed. Don't do that.
Yeah, Donner's gone. There's no point. Donner is part of the magic. I think Sean Astin is a wonderful human being. He and I discussed Goonies 2 back in 2015. It's 10 years since that point. I don't need another Goonies. Let it stand alone. But something like this, something rife with comedy that can have new life breathed into it, fine, go ahead, do your thing. Just make sure that it's more Scary Movie or Airplane and not Meet the Spartans or Vampires suck. You can have your dick jokes. I don't think gay jokes are appropriate anymore, if they were even appropriate back when this movie was produced. But know your audience. Know that you need to have more jokes that land than don't. Because even in this film, Brand mentioned it, the sequence with Miss Man, he didn't see it, but you actually see Miss Man's testicles during the locker room sequence with Cindy. And you see a swastika in the background of her office as well. That joke may have been funny back then. It has not, in my mind, that's the worst age joke in the entire film. Just make it fun, but make it modern as well. You don't need to capture nostalgia by moving humor back 25 years.
And appealing to the lowest common denominator when it comes to humor. I'm hoping and I'm cautiously optimistic about this, and I hope to be proven like somewhat right here. I'm hoping that they'll have a bit of maturity now because obviously a lot has happened in the last 25 years with the Wayans brothers and their writing style. And they're not fresh off In Living Color or the Wayans brothers show like they were with Scary Movie. So I'm hoping, like with 25 years like experience and like wisdom, that it comes with some maturity and like they write some jokes that fit in with the Scary Movie tone, but don't feel like they're just punching down at people who, don't really deserve it.
And if you're gonna punch yourself, if you want to be able to have people laugh, then self-deprecating humor is perfectly fine. By taking shots at the Wayans brothers, they did just that. Uh, for better or for worse, Him was a critical and a box office failure. you can incorporate some kind of parody of that into Scary Movie 6 because Marlon Wayans was in that, and he's one of the chief writers on Scary Movie 2026 / Scary Movie 6. Just go balls to the wall with stuff like that. Don't punch at your audience. Don't pick at your audience. Make situational humor. Make yourself the butt of the joke so people know it's okay to laugh at yourselves. Don't, as Brand said, go for the lowest common denominator.
It's okay to be lowbrow sometimes, but be clever about it as well, is all I'm asking.
Yeah, and considering the list of films that that Marlon has said even recently that he would like to parody, there are endless possibilities. We are in a new era for film because back then, while it was very uncommon, and it shouldn't matter, but it does matter. Equality, inclusion, diversity, they do matter because of where we've been as a society and where we need to keep growing and evolving, not to get on a soapbox all. But thanks in no small part to someone like Jordan Peele, we now have the ability to see that new creators, new voices have opened up doors. And that opens the doors back up for older creators to come in and share their voices as well. One of the films that they've talked about incorporating is by one of the creators I'm referring to, and that's Jordan Peele. They want to touch upon the impact Get Out had. Earlier this year, we had a brilliant film titled Sinners come out by the director of Black Panther, Ryan Coogler. That's open for being touched upon, as well as returning to Jordan Peele. Nope. They mentioned 2024's Longlegs, which has a brilliant performance by Nicolas Cage, and A24's 2024 film Heretic is right for parody, as well as, of course, returning to, because you have to, it's where Scary Movie started, Scream, and I Know What You Did Last Summer.
And to bring it full circle, like when Jordan Peele was inspired to make Get Out, he was inspired to make it because of the impact Scream had on the horror genre. He wanted to make something different and revolutionary for that with Get Out. So it'd be kind of interesting to make it full circle with Marlon Wayans, like riffed on Get Out, riffed on Scream, like Split Six, and of course the idea of like legacy sequels and like reboots and all that kind of stuff, and like but still kept it fresh.
It also,
like I think there's still it's more right for material now to make comedy off of horror movies and the genre from the last 10 years than it was in the gap between Scary Movie 3 to 5. Like there's a way more potential now than there is back then.
It also really, in my mind, helps that with Scream currently being held by Paramount in partnership with Skydance, which is a whole nother story. Fuck you, head of Skydance, for what you did to Melissa Barrera. You can freely bring in elements from Scream into Scary Movie, as well as you can take advantage of the fact that some of the filming is set to take place in Atlanta at Tyler Perry Studios. You can, as far as I'm concerned, Tyler Perry is free game. Have a way at any of Tyler Perry's films because they're exploitive in the wrong way. You can also, since this was birthed thanks to I Know What You Did Last Summer. I don't know if you, Brand, have seen the new I Know What You Did Last Summer, or if any viewers now or watching this on replay have seen I Know What You Did Last Summer. But considering the quality of that film, that's rife for parody as well.
I mean, I didn't watch it, but watching what I have seen of the trailer, Yeah, I can tell just from the trailer, like this is some schlock that definitely could use some riffing on nowadays. Like it almost feels like a parody of itself and is trying to take itself seriously.
Oh, it is. If you want to watch it, it's been on Netflix for a little bit. I didn't see it in theaters. It was only in theaters in my area for a week. That's a bad, bad sign. So, Wayans brothers, please, please, baby Jesus, do not use this as a requel and do the kind of requel slash revival that Sony did for I Know What You Did Last Summer. Because you don't want to take one of your legacy characters down a path where there's no return. It just doesn't work. Otherwise, you end up with I Know What You Did Last Summer 2025, or you end up with Halloween Ends. It doesn't work.
And that whole disappointment of a trilogy right there.
This can be
That
made,
itself could be its own discussion.
yeah, this can be made into a stellar revival film. It doesn't even need to be labeled a requel, considering how they've handled films of the past. You want to form connections? Fine. Just pretend Scary Movie 2, 3, and 4 didn't exist to get all meta with it and make fun of the Halloween franchise. Just have it be a direct sequel to the first Scary Movie for all I care. Just make it fun.
Yeah, all I'm hoping for is back to basics and they make it smart. Like smart as in like what we discussed previously, at least.
Yeah, not necessarily smart humor. Have dumb humor like the original, like old school, like Wedding Crashers, 4-Year-Old Virgin. Just don't talk down to your audience and don't dumb yourself down.
Exactly.
We don't want to be living in the time of idiocracy where Ass the Movie wins Oscar for Best Picture. So, with that being said, on your scale, what would you say about this movie, Brand?
I wouldn't say I'm not good at rating movies. I don't really have like a Cisco and Ebert like thumbs up or thumbs down rating system. But I will say, if you're ever curious about scary movie and like if you're a person who like loves the horror genre, especially you love Scream and you love like the late '90s, early 2000s slashers, or just slasher movies in general, that you wants to laugh at, scary movie's not a bad pick. You could pick worse parody horror comedies than this. And I know it's not like a damn phrase, but like there's so few actual good horror comedies. Like I think offhand, like Student Bodies, Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness. There's not very many horror comedies out there that genuinely hold up well. I think despite the fact that this is dated in many aspects, a lot of it still holds up for me, and I got more than a few laughs out of it still, even 25 years after it came out. So I say I recommend it, and I give it a watch.
Excellent. Yeah, like Brand said, there aren't a whole lot of horror comedies out there that uh, deserve reverence. I would rank this in any top 10 for horror comedy alongside. Thank you for bringing up Evil Dead 2 because that's one of the first, in my opinion, and best horror comedies. And I believe thanks to movies like this, we've been able to achieve attention for films like Shaun of the Dead, like Jennifer's Body, and its loose follow up, Lisa Frankenstein, in 2024. Sometimes it's nice to mix genres, and sometimes it's a lot of fun to just be able to put a movie on like this and shut off your brain to an extent, but not to the extent that you're sitting there drooling because you've been mesmerized by inane stupidity. The Wayans brothers knew what they were doing. The duo that to this day take credit for their contribution, which wasn't even incorporated into the film, did not. Watch what you want. I wouldn't recommend watching their film. In terms of enjoyability, I'd rank this probably a B plus or an A. It pales in comparison to its source material, at least from the Scream side of things, but as its own fun thing that plays tribute and parodies the productions incorporating into this. It's brilliant. And without it, I don't think we would have had Anna Faris and Regina Hall. Regina Hall, who especially has really come into her own within the world of film. Yes, Anna Faris was in other comedy films. For a time, she was married to Chris Pratt, but Regina Hall has been so versatile. She's moved beyond Scary Movie at this point and is still coming back to something that helped really push her into the public eye. Before this, she was only in Best Man and Love and Basketball. Scary Movie helped push her into another Jamie Kennedy connection, Malibu's Most Wanted. She was in, unfortunately, the failed Honeymooners reboot, but she was also in Superhero Movie, which Brandon and I both seem to enjoy. She was Mrs. Charles Xavier in that movie. But she was in Girls Trip, which is an amazing female-led comedy. She was recently in One Battle After Another with Oscar winner Leonardo DiCaprio, who had to starve himself in the frozen tundra to get his damn Oscar.
Doing anything he can to get that Oscar.
Yeah. There's a dark cutaway. I think it's in Family Guy. It's not appropriate in this day and age to make those kind of jokes, but it's centered around what exactly Leonardo DiCaprio will do to get that Oscar. I would say Regina Hall has done just as much by being involved in some failed projects in order to get her Oscar. So will she get it from Scary Movie 6? Probably not. But girl knows how to be versatile and flexible. So I appreciate her for trying something different, just like I appreciate any actor being willing to try new things and go outside of their comfort zones. Comedy seems to be a very underrated and to a certain extent underappreciated genre in this day and age, especially within the horror genre. So this stands the test of time outside of some of the more dated things, and I'm glad that it's readily available on streaming, at least for now. It'll most likely make its way either back over to Netflix or onto Paramount once it leaves Peacock. And just as an aside, for those of you watching now or later, in the event that you struggle, as Brand and I have a mutual friend named Josh, creator of Bang, Ballad of the Tiger, who struggles to gain access to films that we watch in Movie Club. This is not a sponsored video, but try justwatch.com, because that will lay out clearly for anyone looking for a movie what streaming service the movies may or may not be available on. It's made my life a hell of a lot easier trying to figure out where in the world each one of the 6 Resident Evil films happens to be.
If you ever want to watch any of those, I would just suggest playing the games themselves, but, you know, people have their bad case. I can't judge.
I'm a fan of those simply because it's really a love story. It's about Paul W.S. Anderson, who made the only good 90s Mortal Kombat film, 1995's Mortal Kombat, meeting Mila Jovovich and directing the first film, forming a romance with her shortly after, opting out of the second, and then building 4 additional films just around her character. Are they good movies? No. Are they good popcorn flicks or horror comedies to a certain extent? Hell yes, they are.
And speaking of which, they also have the Welcome to Raccoon City one, which somehow is just like I get the intent of it, but my God, was that disappointing because it was like, do you remember this from the games? Clap, audience, clap. And I'm like, why are we
Well,
trying to weld together the stories of one and two together? And
um,
now they're doing this again next year with Resident Evil as well. So we'll see
well,
how that goes. Maybe
Resident
the eighth
Evil,
time's the charm.
Resident Evil from Resident Evil, the final chapter, and Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City, as well as all of the animated films, are still
And the
strong.
Netflix series.
Yeah, are well, I was about to say there's still stronger quality, in my opinion, than the Netflix series. That Netflix series did not understand the franchise, and sure as hell did not understand Wesker as a character at all. So the
Honestly,
one,
Wesker for me is the best part of that series for how little he showed up. But that's
yes,
just my opinion.
yes, he is, but he's still a completely different character. So having seen Barbarian, having seen Weapons earlier this year, with that director writing and directing the new Resident Evil reboot, I'm looking forward to it. I just think it would be hilarious because even 2 films in, that director has developed um, a trope that Quentin Tarantino has used and other directors have used where you use some of the same actors. He has selected Justin Long of Tusk and accepted in Dodgeball to be his consistent actor. So I can't wait to see if he brings Justin along for the ride into a Resident Evil movie and exactly which character he plays. It sure as heck better not be Chris Redfield, but that would be hilarious.
Oh God, I can't even think of who I want him to be as in that. Granted, I can't even tell you who my cast for Resident Evil would be at this point, because at this point, like, I just hope they don't mess it up. Like, the best Resident Evil movies we gotten were the CGI ones, and
Yeah.
even those are mixed bag at best.
I think if I had to fan cast Ada Wong, oh shoot, I would probably, if it were an older Ada Wong, just because she's brilliant, I'd pick Michelle Yeoh. But
That's exactly who I was going to say.
it's probably going to be a younger Ada Wong, and I don't want to see de-aging technology used on Michelle Yeoh. She's gorgeous as she is. Um, they could probably utilize the young lady from the first season of Squid Game. I cannot remember her name, but she's such a brilliant actress. I loved her in that first season. I would
If
put
they
her.
were going to do it 20 years ago, say, like when they had George Romero, like write the script for it and do directing for it, if they did that route, it had Ada in it, I would have put like Ming-Na Wen from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Oh yes, that was my next choice. Mulan all the way.
Like I know she can rock a red dress, so
Yeah, I know I've seen fan cast for Lucy Liu, but Lucy does not have the look for Ada, and I think after a certain point, you're just picking Asian actors to portray an Asian character, and that doesn't work for me. That's just like saying Simu Liu could be Ada Wong. The other person, though, if they want to go even younger, what's the name of that woman from Crazy Rich Asians? Constance Wu's the other one I could see doing that. Because at least with Resident Evil, we're not dealing with teenagers like Scary Movie or the original Scream or I Know What You Did Last Summer. You can have people in their 30s or people in their 40s portraying people in their 30s.
my only thing about with Resident Evil is like, how would you even go trying to like not directed, but like how would you go trying to figure out the plot of the story? Because obviously, like even the games themselves can't get their own continuity down as far as their chronological like events go. So it's always interesting to me, like where do you start? Because do you start at the mansion or do you start at Raccoon City, where the incident happened and began with, like underground? So like the fact that like try welding them together at all times and then trying to make it like some type of bigger conspiracy that the movies try doing, like Red Queen and all that kind of stuff, is like I just kind of felt like we are just trying to weld together stuff that didn't need to be welded together.
Yeah. See, the one thing I really enjoyed about the original movie franchise was the fact that even though most of it took place underground, it did have the setup for Resident Evil 1 because you had the mansion right there. I don't need a direct adaptation because, like you, I love when things can stand on their own and you can have things pay tribute or incorporate elements because they're completely different projects. I would not mind if it follows the original timeline of the games where we focus on the mysteries of the mansion and then it sets up going into Raccoon City. Because to this day, and I think this is why Capcom continues to go back to it, the original Resident Evil stands the test of time. Uh, and transitioning from the mansion and seeing the effect that the virus had on an entire city, it's a perfect escalation to me.
Hmm. And now they mentioned that was just for two games there, where it was focused on the city. And one was on the outskirts of the city. So it's very interesting how they managed to tie all that in together in just three games and a couple spin-offs, but like obviously the spin-offs. But like
Code
by the time you
Veronica.
get the it's yeah, like it's amazing how you get from like Raccoon City to now Resident Evil 4, where it's basically like in Spain. And it's like, uh okay. In Spain in four, then Africa, I believe, in the fifth.
Yeah, I didn't mind that as much because I think Capcom realized, I'm not speaking for Capcom or saying this is fact, but playing the games, I feel like Capcom may have recognized that they didn't want to milk a specific setting and they wanted to show how far reaching this corporation and corruption to show evolution of this virus could be managed as well. Unlike the movie franchise, where the Umbrella Corporation is heavily involved all throughout. In some of the games, yes, they're involved, but they're not the main point of conflict. They're not the all encompassing. The virus should be the focus. No one wants to sit in boardrooms and watch that drama in a zombie movie, which
Hmm.
happens in several of them. So, whether people like the Resident Evil movie franchise or not, initially, at least even before the games started getting there, I think Resident Evil 4 was the first one to really step out of the city, and Resident Evil Extinction, which was the third movie, was the first one to step outside of the city as well. Because you go from mansion and underground to
Code
raccoons.
Veronica, because it was Rockford Island, which is a way, way from like outskirts or like Raccoon City, and then you were in Alaska, so or the Antarctic, I believe it was.
That's right. But for the main franchise, it was four, right? Because
I still count Code Veronica. So the plot still goes forward.
I don't think Nemesis stepped outside of Raccoon City.
No, but Wesker did.
Yeah, Wesker sure as hell did. But you go from the mansion to Raccoon City to the desert to just for the opening sequence for some reason to Japan to Alaska and I think either Oregon or California and then DC before things go to shit and
Oh,
you
well, I
went
guess the six is all over the place, and you lost me. Then I
yeah
think it's seven. It's the swamp. We'll say Louisiana. want to say that 8
Yeah,
is Romania.
yeah. 7 is interesting, and
This
8's
is probably Brand
interesting.
versus geography, but I like I love Resident Evil, but sometimes like the geography, like it's difficult when you add in fictional with real locations sometimes.
No, and it's also difficult when you're trying to just enjoy the game, but you go online to communicate and build community, and all they're focused on is, quote, the big titty mama in the game. Because she's not even the biggest part of that game. No pun intended. She's not even the biggest
Quite
part.
literally the introduction of the game, like the first 2, 3 hours. Maybe if you're like lucky, I would say probably more like lately the first 2 hours.
And that's a longer game than I really expected it to be when they first announced it. We've had some short ass Resident Evil games, but we've had some long ones too.
And I'm hoping like I know we brought up like revisits like that, and I'm sure last 15, 20 minutes get cut out of this anyways from where we're moving on to this tangent. Like with Requiem coming out in February, they seem to be going back to Raccoon City and playing off the events of Outbreak, which I love because Outbreak is one of the more underappreciated Resident Evil games out there, especially for the time it came out in the PlayStation 2 era when they're like online was PlayStation 2 online. So nobody who actually could appreciate Outbreak really could appreciate it. So I'm hoping like the fact that like they're bringing back elements from Outbreak will put more attention on Outbreak and bring it back to the focus a bit more. Maybe get like a port or like a re-release, something about that. And not to mention get some closure on some possible lingering threads from Raccoon City if what I'm gathering from Requiem is the case.
I'm just really excited that we're getting another game in the main timeline that's not a remake. And for the record, I think the remakes are brilliant because it brings whole new generations into this long running franchise. This is a 90s kids franchise, first and foremost, boys and girls. So to see it thrive and survive, as well as, I don't know, Final Fantasy, which is a misnomer since it's never the Final Fantasy.
Well, trivia note for you. Same year the first Resident Evil debuted was the same year the first Scream movie came out, 1996.
Yes, it was. Yes, it
So
was.
both pioneered genres themselves, Resident Evil for survival horror and Scream, from back of the term, reinvigorated the slasher genre for years to come.
I'm just really interested, and we can have free flow conversation. By the way, we've covered everything I think we need to with Scary Movie. It's movie club tradition anyway to go off on tangents like this. I'm really interested to see how
This is this is for you dedicated people at home who like watching us ramble and rant about stuff we enjoy.
100%. I am really interested in seeing how we're able to return to Raccoon City when it's 30 years after Nemesis, and how, with it being such a long time, we're still having a focus on Leon Kennedy and Jill Valentine, because I believe they'd be in their late 50s, early 60s at this point. Granted, it's video
I
game.
mean, it's video game logic, and like obviously, like while there's no saying the specific year, they could always fudge it and say like you could say like, oh, Jill actually didn't age all that much because of what happened in events of Resident Evil 5 or whatever. Or Leon's not in this game, so don't ask those questions yet, dummy. So they
You
could
know,
always fudge it.
you're right about that. And I think one thing that would sell the game even more for me, because I usually wait until games are heavily discounted before buying new games. It's just how I am. I don't want to spend $80 on a new game when I'm still a comic book collector first and foremost. It would be if they were to combine two horror franchises from Capcom, and you might be able to pick up what I'm putting down. Last year, they re-released a complete remaster / remake of one of their other horror franchises. And this falls under the category, in my opinion, of horror comedy before later entries just made it too dark and too convoluted. Bring elements of Dead Rising into Resident Evil. I think that would just be a lot of fun. Even a few Easter eggs would be fun.
The closest I think you'll get with that is the Marvel vs. Capcom games, because you do see like Frank West like commenting on stuff like the Umbrella Corporation, like he's tracking them down. It's like, oh, it's okay. I've photographed wars before, like kind of stuff. But, like I'm okay with zombies.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. What if you're still able to have broadcast television or streamed television in this world, and one of the experts they talk to about zombification or the effect of a bite on a person, you see Frank West on the television. He's older, he's grizzled, and he utters that famous line, "I've covered wars, you know," in reference to
Listen, I will be okay with this as long as we get Phoenix Wright being an attorney for Wesker somehow.
hey, I'd be all for that too. I love Phoenix Wright, and I think that a crossover with Resident Evil in a more serious manner would be hilarious. You could have Phoenix still be Phoenix, but an older and more grizzled Phoenix as Wesker's representation.
Let's be honest here. What I really want is Marvel versus Capcom 4. Putting my cards on the table there. Let's just make up for what Infinite happens, and let's just do it again with 4. I mean, we got the X-Men and Fantastic Four back to play in video games. Why not?
Yeah, we can certainly do that now. And you can have the Inhumans be part of the focus, so you can showcase that Marvel doesn't hate the characters as much as they used to, since it was never their fault that attention had to be drawn away from the X-Men.
It does always bug me though whenever I like see like I have one of these shirts too, whereas like the Marvel comics like just a whole like board of like heroes and stuff like that. It always feels so weird to me to see no X-Men and Fantastic Four on there, but a whole bunch of the Inhumans in there because it feels so off to me. You know, I have nothing against the Inhumans. It just feels so weird not seeing any of the core Fantastic Four or X-Men involved.
Well,
Like you can just see it's like a void.
I agree with that, and I think one of the primary reasons why it bugs me isn't the rights issues where Fox held the license for Fantastic Four and for X-Men so that anything created in the comics was free game for Fox to incorporate into their media products. It's the fact that the Inhumans were, yes, that you could call them mutants if you really want to, because they create their own mutation through the Terrigen Mist. Going deep geek on you for those who aren't familiar with the Marvel comics. But they were always more, until we enter the era, the modern cosmic era under DNA, they were always more isolationist. They wanted to be left alone. And part of that was, yes, the Celestials and the Kree saw the Inhumans as failed experiments where the Eternals were the golden children. So the Inhumans were isolationist. However, I think that worked for them because it made their appearances have a greater impact on the story when they appeared. So to have them take front and center stage away from characters that have been the public eye for so long, again, like you said, nothing against the Inhumans, it just did not make sense. And nothing speaks to that more than the fact that none of the Inhumans titles published during, what was it, All New, All Different, and then
Marvel Now.
Marvel Now and Marvel Now 2.0, and then Marvel Legacy. None of those books ever reached the sales heights like X-Men or Avengers or
Even if you had some standouts, like you had Miss Marvel, because technically an human character at the time, even though that has kind of changed at this point in terms of canonicity. But you also had Black Bolt. Like you had some good series in there, and I know people were reading them, but it's always like, but they're not the X-Men. It's like I know, but they're still printing X-Men.
the problem also is the fact that in order to avoid having to let their new toys be handed over to Fox, if Fox wanted it that way, we were stuck with less than stellar runs for X-Men titles from, I want to say, around 2015 to close to when Hoxpox started up, because you had the
2019 is when Hoxbox started, so
you had Jeff
I remember
Lemire.
that very vividly.
You have Jeff Lemire, who is a brilliant writer, gave us Sweet Tooth, is now writing Absolute Flash for DC's Absolute line, but his title Extraordinary X-Men was not very exciting, and it was stuck in crossover hell for a decent part of it to tie into X-Men Apocalypse, as was All New X-Men at the time, and one other title. I think it was it was Uncanny X-Men, because Cullen Bunn was writing Magneto and Sabretooth at the time. Those were all stuck in crossover hell off and on, thanks to the X-Men Apocalypse 2016 film. And then we moved from that era into, what was it called? It wasn't Revolution. Resurrection with an X in it. You had X-Men Blue and X-Men Gold. And you had Mark Guggenheim, whose Omni has recently been released, writing
Which
a
I
lot
bought.
to awesome. I haven't yet. I'm waiting for a sale. You have Mark Guggenheim, who did a brilliant job with Young X-Men, a very underrated miniseries from the Utopia era of X-Men, I think prior to 2010, writing X-Men Gold as a love letter to Chris Claremont, but not really striking the same voice or having the same impact that Chris Claremont had in any of his three runs with the X-Men, whether it's his original run, his Revolution run, which was cut short and is not great due to edits, and his the post Joss Whedon era. I can't remember what that era was called, but the mid 2000s era. All of those were better than
Estimation is what it was called, that one, like the 198 era, really.
Thank you. I know there was a specific imprint name, and it was part of Decimation, but we'll call it Decimation because that also has an omnibus, even if it doesn't collect the Uncanny X-Men
Because
parts.
that led into basically the Holt Summers arc of X-Men for like the next few years,
Yeah,
while
that
Civil War was about to
leads
happen.
to the Messiah complex era.
I know, talking about Blue and Gold, it's very interesting how around that time, if I'm getting my memory right, you also had like Death of Wolverine happening with Old Man Logan stepping in, Dead Man Logan stepping in as part of the team. Then you also had off to the side when the by the time it was like the closer to the end of X-Men Gold, you had Mr. and Mrs. X popping up, which was a phenomenal series, by the way, if you have not read it.
Yeah,
And also
killed it on that
the
series. So good.
Return of Jean Grey, which I thought was pretty great, along with X-Men Red, the original version, even though one by Al Ewing from Krakoa is still pretty good on its own.
Mm-hmm.
That
Yeah,
is
and
yet to see hardcover, and it annoys me.
yeah, X-Men Red could have been incorporated into the all-new Wolverine omnibus since it was the same writer, Tom Taylor, but it's left out in the middle of nowhere. They'll probably
It
do
could have been
some.
in the Phoenix omnibus, but and
Yeah,
again, there is room for four Omnis of Phoenix.
yeah, yeah. Omar will put that on his evergreen list, I'm sure.
I mean,
but
I'll buy it. I bought the third one.
but X-Men Gold had a lot of potential, and still was not what we really needed. It paid homage to classic stories, but it also came out around the time of the Batman Catwoman wedding fake out and had its own wedding fake out in issue 30, which was fine because it did give us, as you said, Mr. and Mrs. X. But we moved from X-Men Gold into the disassembled era, which I consider a low point, because even though I'm sure the writer knew that Hickman was coming in to reset everything, it became a bloodbath era for the X-Men.
It's clearing the deck in the most miserable way possible. It's like, fuck it, who cares? These characters will be coming back anyways. I'm just here to like reshuffle the table so that way I don't have to. They don't have to clear up so much mess when I will eventually leave.
And yet I'd still buy an omnibus of it. I would just hope that issue 17 of the 2018 Uncanny X-Men series gets a notice that says something about the depiction of these acts is not supported by Marvel, because to have Wolfsbane
to be fair,
and then murdered, it's not acceptable to me. Killer, fine, but do you really have to incorporate the other acts against her? No, I don't think so.
I would also want that disclaimer before the Chuck Omnibus or Chuck Austin X-Men Omnibus as well. These acts were not encouraged or influenced by Marvel.
I know you're not talking about Havoc threatening to drink Iceman and pee him out. You're talking about Archangel and Husk and Mystique in the church.
And Nightcrawler and Juggernaut, to an extent Juggernaut.
Thank the good Lord for Dan Slott retconning that stuff with Juggernaut.
And thank the Lord for X-Men Blue Origins for Nightcrawler.
Even though his birth position does not make a whole lot of gosh darn sense.
Listen, I don't give a hoot.
Thank goodness for Marvel being courageous enough to admit their mistakes and for righting a wrong against Chris Claremont, since that was the original intended parentage of Kurt Wagner. But it also makes sense because Mystique was not a prude and got around. And obviously that passed on to Kurt because throughout the Krakoa era, he was all over the place. He was the one who came up with the first law, make more mutants, and he was with two different Arakan people and wound up with Silver Sable for a little while, too.
I mean, Uncanny Spider-Man. It's right there on the page. Always confused me when to put that on my shelf. Do I put it with Spider-Man or do I just put it with Nightcrawler? It's so weird.
That's a good question because Spider-Man himself even shows up in that miniseries.
Yeah, it's like Spider adjacent. Like it's basically Nightcrawler in a Spider-Man outfit, but I don't want to call it Spider-Man. It's so weird.
I'm hoping that with us having a Jerry Dugan, an Al Ewing, a Jonathan Hickman omnibus. Am I missing one? We get a Cy Spurrier omnibus as well because they could collect.
I'm hoping for Carrie. I'm hoping for what is it? It's in my tongue. Not X-Men Red because that's getting one.
Joe Casey.
Was it Immortal X-Men?
Yeah, Immortal X-Men. That was Gillen, so we'll probably get that. We're getting his Uncanny and his sword run, the first sword run.
On this table there.
Get it, yeah.
I'm also hoping like Colin Bunn's Magneto gets reprinted too. I don't know how to do that. It'd be like his own book or part of somebody else's, but that should be reprinted at this point.
I'm thinking since Colin Bunn wrote so much for the X-Men world, we could move from where it started in Magneto through Uncanny X-Men,
X-Men
which is
Blue.
basically the X-Force book at that point, through X-Men Blue, and that would be enough because I think it was 25 issues of Magneto. If you have to, don't incorporate Access, only do material from Access because that's 9 issues, 10 if you include the free comic book day that we don't need. And also it acts as follow-up to the original Uncanny Avengers. Then there's 20 issues in an annual of Uncanny X-Men. No, it would be too big. It would be 65 plus issues because X-Men Blue, I think, is 36 issues all on its own.
They can always do volume 1 and 2. They're not opposed to
Yeah,
doing
that would
that.
be fine. It wouldn't be unusual. We've got 4 volumes of continual Peter David Incredible Hulk and then one post-original run volume. It could be done.
And Maestro, which is
Yeah.
basically just in the middle of both.
So why not? I'm all for that.
Definitely a lot of exciting things on the pike when it comes to comics and collected editions.
Yeah, I will tell you that since you haven't been present recently on the Discord, one of the biggest complaints, not just on the Discord, but across all social media, is the fact that for the past 2 years, Omar, Tiger Eyes, Crisis, you yourself have put in a lot of hours, a lot of time to put together the reprint poll and the most wanted polls. And there are all of us who have voted. And Marvel, the last time they put any attention to reprints, we got, I'm not counting newly combined Omnis. We got, I think, 9 or 10 out of the top 25 reprinted. And then with the 2024 reprint poll, we got nothing. With the 2025, we got nothing. Omar at this point is waiting to see what's going to happen with July 2026 through January 2027 as to whether or not
All
we
I'm
get.
saying is they have been very open about the fact that like they're working around the schedule because obviously there's a lot of new books. DC's also upping up their game when it comes to reprinting stuff and printing out new material. We're getting new books for like the Triangle era. We're getting like new Batman stuff, Elseworlds. We're getting the Bronze Age Batman book. Finally, my
Thank
most wanted
you.
DC book. I've only been waiting, hell knows how long I've been collecting comics for that. And we're finally getting Bronze Age Batman. So like I'm okay right now if Marvel's like trying to figure things out of where to put reprints at, plus their new books for like 6, 7 months stretch, because my wallet can only take a beating for so long.
On that, I'll agree. It's just the principle of the thing in that we've all put in this work. Marvel wants the work done. And I feel it's disrespectful for them to not only not give their customers what they know will sell. I'm not being entitled in that statement for the record, people, but to not maintain the same level of contact with Omar as they once did. There's a bit of an upheaval, apparently, changing to a certain extent of the guard with in the collected editions department, but it's kind of ironic because all throughout the pandemic and even a little bit after things started settling down, Marvel was the king of collected editions, and they not directly, but they kind of laughed in the face of DC, who was canceling lines 1 or 2 volumes in, like with Peter David's Aquaman and Kyle Rayner. And now, not only have they learned, outside of a grievous misspelling of compendium on the Kyle Rayner compendium, to properly buy compendiums, but thanks to James Gunn sticking whatever size boot he wears up the ass of the publishing department, we've gotten books that we had wanted but didn't have any real hope for because DC wasn't with the game. We've gone 2 years in a row now with Triangle era Omnis. We're getting that Bronze Age Batman book. Fuck yes. We're getting a Zatanna by Paul Dini omnibus, which
We're
was
getting Brainiac Reborn,
yeah.
which is the gap filler between Exile and Triangle of Era Volume 1. So we're getting that gap filler there.
I am so glad that DC is willing to work with its fans and with Omar, and that James Gunn, being a geek and a
New
fan,
Krypton.
is
Freaking
leading.
New Krypton. You know how long I've been holding off on getting the trades for New Krypton? Because I have been like, as soon as I buy the trades, they'll get the omnibus announced. I didn't have to buy the trades. I just have to be patient enough to wait.
And not only is that coming, but they not only had Jeff Johns give his insight, but Sterling Gates gave insight for the reading order for the work they had put together. So it's going to
We're
be
getting stuff
in proper reading
for the
order.
New 52. We're getting New 52 Catwoman finally printed again. Because once you get to the Genevieve Valentine stuff, like halfway through the Catwoman stuff, it's a really good short arc for Catwoman and the New 52. I can't wait for that stuff. Then you got like the rest of New 52 Flash, because that's been like a gap filler that needs to be put in all the time. You
I
got
would prefer it be called the Flash New 52 Omnibus Volume 2 as opposed to Road to Rebirth, but I'm okay with it. The title was
listen,
just a little misleading.
I'll take my unwieldy titles how I can get them. You know me, my pithy mapping titles. So like I'll take what I can get at this point, as long as they just print the books. Like I'm still waiting on Wonder Woman's like second half of her New 52 to get collected in that format.
I only read Catwoman in the New 52 through the first, I want to say, 19 issues. Their What the Fuck issue, because all issue 19s were WTF for the New 52 for whatever reason. It was brand
And
new language back then. I guess they wanted to be hip and with it and cool, or at least Didio thought he knew what the kids wanted. But even though they kind of, no offense to Catwoman, even though they kind of tried to make her out to be a hoe in those initial arcs, it was fun, and it kind of reminded me, outside of that, of the original ongoing series from the 90s. And
yeah, it reminded me of Jim Ballant era Catwoman, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, just a reset to basically pre her character development, like around Hush and House of Hush.
I would rather have that, honestly, than the post Azzarello Wonder Woman stuff. I want that to be released, but David Finch and his wife completely ignored Azzarello's run, and they butchered the way they handled Donna Troy.
I mean, I want them to do the rest of the Greg Rucka's run first because we got that volume one finally. So I want them to do volume two with the Rebirth stuff, which that's already gonna be weird on my shelf when it goes from Greg Rucka volume one jumps all the way to volume two being Rebirth era. So it's like a long gap between both, but still, I'll be happy to have my collection finally.
But you could do Greg Rucka and then the next major run. No offense to Chung and the other gentleman who worked on Young Avengers originally. But that was only 6 issues. The next major run is the Gail Simone run. And then after Gail leaves is, I think, yeah, that's when Straczynski starts. That would only need to be an oversized hardcover at best. And then we go into
Yeah, they could easily combine those two trades into just one, and that instrument grounded is basically what they could just put into like a deluxe edition, and I'd just be content at that point.
what I wanted to see, and I understand why they're doing Road to Rebirth first. I honestly do. It's because we already have the mapping laid out for it, and because we already have the Francis Manipool omnibus, which DC said that list that Omar sent of all the out of print DC books, every single one of them on that list will be reprinted in 2026 or 2027, with the 2 exemptions probably being Ronin, because that's at another publisher at this point, and probably JLA Avengers. That would
which
be
would
cool.
be what I'm hoping for, but you never know. They've been doing crossovers more lately, so
Yeah. I think
the
the
door is
perfect
always
would
open.
be next year because we've got the 50th anniversary of the first DC Marvel crossover, Superman, Spider-Man. But
Which
I I want to see if they're going Road to Rebirth, which we know they are. I want to see the next Mark Wade run incorporated. I really think
I
that's an overlooked era.
I think when it comes to Flash, my top two that I want is the Bronze Age, because it's long overdue to finally see Flash Bronze Age. We're starting to get some of the DC finest. I think it's finally time to get some anomalies to map it up with the Silver Age. And also Volume 2 of the William Measure Loeb's run, because then you basically get William Measure Loeb's run like post-Crisis all the way up to Wave 3. And then after Wave 3, assuming they don't do it, you got Jeff Johns, and you got like that middle portion there with like this Bart Allen as a Flash that Sneeze collected. But you basically got like a whole stretch of comics from like post crisis to like Jeff Johns era, just all in onto this format.
Yeah, which is nuts. I don't know 100%, but I would think that it would make Flash close to the way they have Thor for Marvel, where we
Mm-hmm.
have nearly 30 years worth of books in an omnibus format. That's
Right,
incredible.
or Epic Collection too, because in Epics you're only really missing with Thor is the Simonson run, if I'm not mistaken, because that is still on the fence. I'm on the fence if I'm going to get that because if it's in the original colors, I will. If it's the reprint colors, I'm just going to keep my complete collections.
It's actually confirmed it's going to be the original colors. They're going off the
I'm
map
getting it then.
for that. I'm
I'm getting it then.
really excited. Really, really excited. When, by the way, in case you didn't know, when the Flash by uh, Mark Waid Omnibus Volume 3 comes out in February, 3 days after my birthday, it's not orphaning issue 163. So you will have uh, a clear line once they fill in that gap between William Menser Loeb and Mark Waid Volume 1. So,
Fantastic. Because not even counting the Grant Morrison, Mark Millar stuff though, because that's his own deluxe edition. Like that itself is like it's a very much nice treat for fans of the Flash to have that. And also like Green Lantern too is like Green Lantern because of that show coming out next year early, getting some love. Or he's getting two Omnis out in the span of 3 months.
yeah, I'm actually, at least for now, uh, getting rid of my Green Lantern by Jeff Johns Omnis in favor of the compendiums because those things are evergreen Omnis. I don't necessarily need everything in Omni format, even though I love it, if it means there's a better way to read it.
Is it odd here with the Green Lantern stuff? So I actually got the Omnis to replace the thick trades they put out. They never finished of them. So I got the three Omnis for those. I got the two GLC books. I'm getting the two Vendetti books. And I'm getting those two compendiums for GLC because of all the other stuff, the Ion and Guy Gardner stuff and the one shots that aren't in the Jeff Johns Omnis. So I'm getting those as like companion books.
Makes sense to me. And one of my friends actually contacted Vendetti recently. We aren't just getting Green Lantern by Vendetti volumes 1 and 2. We are getting Hal Jordan in the Green Lantern Corps. It just hasn't been put into the catalog yet. But he
See that
confirmed we're
that
getting.
and Jessica Cruz and Simon Boz is like rebirth. Yes.
Yeah, if we can get a Green Lanterns, which I think was originally written by Sam Humphries, correct?
Yep, Sam Humphries and then Tim Seeley took afterwards.
Then we'll be good to go. I think the Hal and Pals book, which is why I call Hal Jordan and the Grand Lantern Corps, is a lot of fun. And my biggest gripe with it is that Vendetti completely trashes Sora in the book, and no one's used her since. Not even Jeffrey Thorne during his horrific run on Green Lantern has used her.
Yeah, I remember like a big arc involving Sinestro in that book as well.
Yeah, but there's hope considering Jeremy Adams is following pretty much the same path that Jeff Johns did, minus Stargirl and Justice Society, because he's writing Green Lantern. He's pretty much replaced JSA in his writing portfolio with Green Lantern Corps. He's writing Aquaman right now. It would be interesting to see if he takes over Justice League in whatever form it becomes after Mark Waid leaves.
I'll be very curious. I know I'm really enjoying how outside of the Absolute Universe, the mainline DC books have been firing on all cylinders, I think, to borrow a phrase. Like they are really doing a good job of making like every book work for what it's trying to do. Like there's not been like a book where I'm like, this book coming out, I guess I'll buy it.
No, it's been interesting. I'm again, I'm not a Debbie Downer, but I have been more disappointed or meh with certain Marvel titles recently than I have been with DC. And the only reason why I'm getting most of the absolutes in collected edition form as opposed to single issues is because I didn't want to have all of the Ultimate Universe and all of the Absolute Universe on my pull list. That in and of itself was too much, but I'm definitely going to re-add Absolute Batman and Absolute Wonder Woman because in Wonder Woman issue 12, my all-time favorite DC character made their debut in the Absolute.
Which I love their design the more I see it. The more I see like it's basically an inverse of the regular outfit, but it actually kind of works. Like it gives me very big Black Canary vibes from it too.
100%. And on the side of Batman, I love the fact that Snyder has embraced the silliness and the cheesiness of comics without going overly meta or too in depth like he did by pulling a Grant Morrison basically with Dark Knight's death metal, which I loved, but you have to balance the silliness. The fact that Batman has an axe as his bat symbol is silly enough for me. And then recently in issue 13, you see what happens when Batman decides to be intimate in costume. It brings a whole new meaning to the phrase, kiss my axe.
It is very funny to me. Like it's weird, the Absolute Universe. If this is stuff that was happening in like the mainline books, I would kind of hate it to tell you the truth. But because it's having its own little bubble, and because the whole point of it is not meant to be the good version, really, I'm okay with it in an odd kind of sense.
Yeah.
Like, of course, it's supposed to be corrupted. I'm not mad about it. It's just if this was happening in the mainline books, I'd be like, I kind of hate this, but it's not. So,
And it's meant to be in comics at the end of the day, as most media, it's meant to be enjoyed. It's meant to be fun. Nothing illustrates that more than the one shot they announced that still, for some reason, doesn't have a title at New York Comic Con for DCKO, where you've got Homelander, Sub-Zero, Sam, the serial killer from Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees, Vampirella, Red Sonja, and Annabelle, of all freaking things, being incorporated into the fights for
I
DCKO.
won't lie. Part of me feels like that's still a joke. I have no idea at this point. It's not impossible. It just feels like that combined with like Swamp Thing and like Rick Veitch like returning to finish his story basically with that. I'm like, what is happening?
James Gunn is what's happening. James Gunn is allowing DC to be fun again. DC is allowing Mark Waid to cook, and in turn, Mark Waid is paying it forward by allowing Joshua Williamson to be the new steward for Legion of Superheroes. I can't wait for that either.
Which Joshua Williamson has a good track record. I don't see why people have such trepidations about it. Like the guy knows his stuff, and the guy has written more good than bad, in my opinion. Especially when it comes to like teams and like out there concepts. So I'm okay with him. Like the guy did a really good Green Arrow arc with the like surrounding the family and reuniting them. I'm okay with him being on board with Legion of Superheroes.
His Flash was awesome, despite the fact that he had to really work up to returning Barry to being Barry, because Barry was still really holding on to Wally's younger personality when Rebirth started. His Flash run, when you just see it as its own thing, is really, really good. My friend Brian, who's another admin for the Omnibuds Cafe, has it ranked as his all-time favorite Flash run just because it allows itself to have fun. The only things I haven't enjoyed from Williamson are Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths, because
Which
we
I
didn't
liked,
need
but
another
I'm a
sequel.
minority on that.
I just didn't need a sequel. I thought Infinite Crisis was enough of a sequel 20 years prior. And Night Terrors, which I don't like in main part due to the fact they interrupted so many book story arcs, and due to the fact that you had, I think, 54 different miniseries or 2-issue miniseries going on at one point.
Which I was fine with Night Terrors because yeah, it paused a lot of the stuff, but that's really the only problem I had with it in real time. Looking back on it now, it's like these stories in isolation are actually pretty good when you actually break them down. Like the Joker one was interesting. A lot of the ones involving the Bat family interesting. Like Superman was interesting. Like there was not like one where I felt was of like, oh, this is just a dud. Like is a good take into like the mindset of a lot of these like heroes and villains, and I actually enjoyed that. Like it felt like a breather arc, if you say, instead of it just being like another big crisis.
If anything, I accept its existence for the fact that it really helped set up the next stage of the DC publishing line and helped Amanda Waller set up her public persona that allowed absolute power to happen before that brought about the fall of the wall.
I'm glad you brought up Waller because this has been on my mind too, and it's something that came in my mind when I was thinking about Maxwell Lord. How odd is it that there's been two characters who have been known for being shady, in charge of like high levels of operation in the government or like teams like Justice League or like Argus or whatever, and they're both end up being nah, they're just kind of actually evil this whole time. I kind of don't like that.
No, I don't like it either. That's one of the reasons why James Gunn has gone on record stating that his brother Sean Gunn's Maxwell Lord will never go down the same path that he went in the publishing line. And I get it. You had to find a villain with connection to certain characters, but there was no lead up to it. To this
In the
day,
case with Maxwell Lord, my problem with it was like it was set up. He's like he was said to be the big bad for like Infinite Crisis was like how that was being built up as with Countdown, Infinite Crisis, and Infinite Head Cord, and it really just ended up him being the pawn to an even bigger threat, like with Alex Lander, Luthor, and Superboy Prime. Like he was really just a pawn to their scheme of the Omax. So it kind of felt wasted the fact that like Wonder Woman had such a big effect on her character and arc in Infinite Crisis because of what happens in Countdown and Infinite Crisis. And then you have later with Amanda Waller, where who was always seen as like from Suicide Squad and onwards up to that point, being yeah shady, but her heart is in the right place and knowing that sometimes necessary evils are a thing, but also like knowing when to step back and realize I've gotten too far to now just basically just being an outright screw villain.
so it's kind of funny. I think their ears must have been burning. The gentleman I spoke of who has the Joshua Williamson Flash run as their favorite is in the chat. They say Infinite Crisis in the build-up is God tier.
Oh, don't get me wrong. I love how it's well written. I'll give it that. It's well written. The Maxwell Lord Torn. It's just when I think back to the prior continuity with like JLI, it's like they really just went from shady to nope, just evil.
Mm-hmm.
It just feels so weird to me,
If you,
especially when it's Jeff Johns, so he likes retcons. It's like we've had prior stories where like he's actually not yeah, he's shady, but his heart's in the right place. We've had those same type of characters before. Why we had to turn Maxwell Lord though, and make it to where like I was actually making the Justice League ineffectual the entire time. Sorry if you like those lighthearted books. They were actually just being dumb, and I made them that way. Like that's so dumb.
agreed. So no, we weren't saying anything bad about you. I was just presenting the fact that you love the Joshua Williamson run on Flash, and we were singing the praises of him as a writer, while me commenting that Dark Crisis is not really my bag. I also about 10 minutes ago put your Flash reading order read in the chat. Omar does reading orders, boys and girls, but Brian has crafted a Flash reading order since Flash is one of his favorite characters. So the link to that is in the chat here. He's put a lot of heart and soul into it. He's 6 episodes in, and he has just covered with over an hour in length the first omnibus for Jeff Johns' The Flash, after covering quite a bit of The Flash, going through the William Mentor Loeb, going through Wade first portion, Morrison, Miller, and Wade's second part. So look forward to that every once in a while. And check out, I think it's part 3 and part 4 for my cameo appearances and my impression of Reverse Flash in those reading order videos. It was me, Barry.
It was me, Barry. God damn it, we're on the same wavelength.
I'm the one who poisoned the well and neutered all your friends and family. It was me. The worst part is when I did the first video, Brand, I was wearing, I made a trailer over a year and a half ago for those Bible Black reviews that are still coming and that James hasn't forgotten about. It's a pastel-y, sparkly bunny mask, and I don't have a Reverse Flash mask, so that was the mask I was wearing when I was pretending to be Reverse Flash. But we're going on like 3.5 hours now. I think
the scary movie review has ended like an hour ago at this point.
Oh, Red says the video. I'm about halfway through it, I think. Brian says the video is all of Wally's run. It's the first 2 Omnis for John's. And apparently he wants me to cameo when we get to Rebirth, and he agrees that Dark Crisis isn't Williamson's best work.
I don't think it's his best work, no, but like it was nice seeing the Titans be the ones in the spotlight for a change, especially with how much crap they get on them.
I'm cut between Superman and his short run on Green Arrow being his best work.
His Superman was really, really good.
And he's relaunching Iron Man next year, so I'm really excited to read that, because I feel like the Spencer Ackerman run was just getting running, and they canceled it with issue 10, which is BS. But
the Iron Man curse, I swear, lately can't keep a sustaining run for longer than 20 issues. It feels like.
No, not lately. But I appreciate you being here. Thank you all for watching. I'll cut the stream here. We've been talking for 3.5 hours. Above all else, remember, when it comes to anything in life, be it comics, movies, etc., every experience is someone's first. Every experience is someone's favorite. So if you have differences, see them as something that builds further strength and doesn't create dissonance and divergence. I think that's something that most of us in the movie club, which is typically run on Torson's Literature and Pictures, believe in. Because even if someone like Josh can swallow his bile to watch a film that Brand and I enjoy passionately, like Cats Don't Dance or Small Soldiers, then the world can be a better place, in my opinion. So
well spoken and well said.
Thank you all for watching. Stay healthy, stay safe, be well. You know where
And
to find
happy
me.
Halloween.
Yes, I'm here on YouTube as DBZ All Star, or on Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram, and TikTok is either #1 Animaniac or Animaniac1. I'm also the affirmation administrator in the Omnibuds Cafe. Brand you can find in the hearts and smiles of every child out there, because he just brings so much life and joy and sunshine into the world, and I truly mean that. He'll also be on further movie clubs where we review Who the Heck Knows next month. That's Torson's job to figure out at this point.
We'll find out when it's turkey time next month what movie club we're doing then.
Stay healthy, stay safe, be well all.